As we wrap up 2025, one thing's clear. Uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Noble Gold Investments helps Americans protect what they've built with real gold and silver, holding value when everything else feels uncertain. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com and take your first step toward a safe future. This holiday season, when you open up a qualified account, you'll receive 10 1-ounce commemorative silver holiday coins. Visit Noble Gold today. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Kelly Clarkson with Wayfair. My favorite thing about the holidays? Decking out my whole house. It's not a competition, but if it was, well, I'd win the season with Wayfair. Outdoor inflatable Santa? Got it on Wayfair. Trees, lights, and ornaments? Wayfair. Hosting must-haves like dining sets, beds, sheets, and towels? Wayfair. For everything in your style delivered with fast and free shipping, visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app to win the season. But again, it's not a competition.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We are the 9th ranked podcast by local artificial intelligence, and we talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. Today is Sunday, December 7th, 2025, and Trish and I are kicking off today with the news that was broken on Tuesday, December 2nd, that TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, has received a multi-year deal with the AMC network to broadcast their TV show Impact every Thursday night from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. This deal has been something that was talked about for quite some time and then disappeared for a while. We made delightful fun of Carlos Silva, a.k.a. Hatman, for promising this deal in October and then not delivering it. But TNA has somehow risen from the dead yet again. This is the wrestling promotion that will never go away. We will be a husk of a world. Carbon will have taken over the entire... there'll be nothing left but total nonstop action wrestling playing somewhere on a television during the apocalypse. Trish, were you surprised by this news? What did you think when you heard the news that Total Nonstop Action was going to the American Movie Channel, home of such wonderful shows as Interview with the Vampire, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, and Mad Men?
So first of all, if you keep saying the 9th rated podcast by AI, people are going to actually believe we take that serious. Especially the people listening to this for the first time.
Yes, we don't take that serious. It's a joke. We found it very amusing.
But so I'm just listening to it going, oh my God, people are going to think we're taking this seriously now. No, anyway, so the AMC story had come out a couple of weeks ago through John Alba at Sports Illustrated. So it was definitely that they were interested party in that point. And they seemed to have moved from the front runners to the front runners from CW, which I found very interesting. We spoke about it briefly at the last time out because, CW was seen as the place they were going.
Yes.
There was already this belief in AEW and other places that they were going Wednesday nights, 8 p.m, opposite AEW on the CW. So for another network to end up with them is kind of a shock, and it's something worth discussing. Is that to do with the fact that NXT had been hit so hard by Big Data Plus panel? It might not have kind of been the deciding factor in the AMC deal, but it may be in terms of the reason why they didn't go to CW. Is there some other factor? What is it monetary value? Is it were they not willing to offer them, the $10 million a year that Carlos Silva said he wanted?
Is this a red flag for any renewal of NXT on CW? When that deal is up, there's certainly questions there.
And we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that when we come to around the value of the deal later. But so I thought that was an interesting point as well, that AMC suddenly became the front runners. It is worth noting that WWE signed a deal with MSG, which is owned by the Donald family, which is the same people that own AMC, just shortly beforehand. But yeah, I think it was a surprise in a way. I think Carlos Silva, so I've already said this on Jesse Collins' podcast this week, but it's true. We kind of owe him an apology in some ways.
Do we though?
No, well, in some ways. I contextualized it, right?
Okay.
Because I think we wondered if this deal would ever come. He was like the boy who cried wolf. He was almost like Seth Rollins with injuries, right? So it's like...
Wow.
Well, look
No,
what we're
it's
doing
true.
now.
It was just an unexpected burn. I was like, whoa, Seth Rollins is somewhere going, what the fuck did I do?
But the only difference is it's like Carlos Silva has a hat and Seth Rollins has 10 different outfits and apparently a man in a complete black clothed outfit jumping in a cage. But, that's the only difference, right? If that black figure, clothed figure was wearing a hat, then maybe it could have been Carlos Silva.
Could have been Carlos Silva.
Could have been. No, anyway. But... I think we kind of doubted his ability to kind of get any deal across the line. And he has got something. So the hard bit is that we don't know a lot of the details about this deal yet.
We know.
And
we know so little about this. And it's one of those things where it's very funny because a lot of people are like, this is great. And it's like, we don't know if it's good or not. Like, I think that ways you could discuss that it's good, there's a lot of ways where you could sort of say, there's not enough information about the length of the deal. It's just that it's multiple years.
Yep.
We don't know any information about the value. Obviously, we have Silva's $10 million a year number to go back to, but we have no idea what the accuracy is. We don't know if it's a revenue sharing deal. We don't know if there's an early out. One of the early reports was about a 60-day termination. That got denied, but we don't know whether there's, any...
The interesting thing is that didn't get denied. So the other part of that story about TNA and WWE working together... working together still, got denied. But that bit kind of got left to one side. We've not actually had a firm denial of that. So that's kind of interesting in itself.
That is interesting.
But yeah, so there was mixed reports. So the line that's being fed to people kind of off the record is $10 million a year, 3 years. But we don't know. So we don't actually have that information as in the same way that we did with the recent WWE deals with Netflix or with USA or etc. So we don't actually know that at the current time. But if you go with that as kind of the baseline, then he achieved what he set out to achieve, the target that he set himself. And the things that you can look at. So this one, it's going to be Thursday Night Impact. So I think it makes more sense. They're going 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. I think it makes more sense for them to stay on their own night. They are established with Thursday nights as well.
Yep.
So in terms of that familiarity thing, when you want people to turn over onto a different channel, as well as attracting people who may have not watched on Access TV, which is probably most of us. So that makes all sense. You don't want them to have, head-to-head competition in terms of for TNA's future. WWE doesn't care less. Like, they would love that because their whole point is to try and lower the AEW renewal value, right? But for TNA, it's like you want to maximize your own kind of value. So you want the best possible way to do that. And you're still going to get some head-to-heads with Collision, and that's going to be interesting. We'll see kind of what that kind of looks like. But it's like you want to put your best foot forward. So it makes sense for you to be on your own night. And they are, massively increasing their potential audience in terms of how many people can now see their show.
Yes.
So it's in double the number of homes practically that Access is. The estimate for the for AMC is like 55 to 60 million homes. So that's a huge increase. And then they also it's also going to be available on AMC Plus, which is available across 4 different services, which has a potential increase up to availability of another 10 million homes on top of that. So it's the best kind of exposure they've had since they were on Spike TV. For anyone who remembers the early 2010s. So yeah, it's been a decade since they've had anything with this level of exposure. But the big questions for us, in terms of how they start off is they have this immense importance to start strongly. And I think they will be looking to get people in WWE that were previously in TNA as part of their broadcast, I'm sure.
Yes, there's a lot of talk about AJ Styles and Styles and Frankie Kazarian doing a match, a championship match which I honestly think is more likely given that one of the discussions, and I know you had talked about this, was Mike Santana winning the title on the opening episode being a possibility. Mike Santana last night challenged on the pay-per-view that they had, he challenged Frankie Kazarian for Genesis. And the pay-per-view debut is the 15th and Genesis is the 17th of January. So that would suggest that he's not going to have a title match on that, which would leave that open to possibly being someone like AJ Styles or somebody else from WWE.
And I find that really interesting because it seems really, really obvious that the idea would be to have it on the TV debut, to have this big, memorable moment on a TV debut that's about one of your current kind of crop, your current roster. And that makes me feel like this will be more of a nostalgia hit sort of thing as a debut. And I would be really careful that you've got to get that balance right, because you want enough people, like maybe big appearances on there, because you're trying to, like, you want a huge debut number, right? That's going to be your biggest number on AMC.
Right.
It is the biggest, same as when SmackDown was on Fox, same as AEW on TNT
TBS,
as it was at the time.
TNT,
Yeah. So your biggest number will be the first episode that you run. So, load it up, understand that, but you've got to make sure that you focus on the people that you're going to continue to focus on, because at the end of the day, like, the TV network's going to see like the first number, the second week number, third week, okay, that's great. But if you've signed a multi-year deal, then it's what happens in week 5, what happens in week 6, what happens in week 7. How are you competing against what was on that network previously?
Right.
So they're trying to... Sorry.
No, I was going to say, which we should point out that the average rating on Thursday nights is a 0.04 for the demo for AMC, and their primetime viewership average is about 160,000 people. So they don't have to do huge numbers to be doing better than what AMC is currently doing.
Yeah, that primetime viewership average is the whole week, but it's like...
Right.
So but that's still much higher than what they were doing on Access. They slipped under 100,000 over in 2024, and where we don't really see their numbers at all. They had got up to, when they had Kenny Omega there for a time, they had episode over 200,000, and considering the drop in homes, that sort of thing, or the difference in homes between AMC and Access, you can think, okay, maybe they have that possibility. And I would suggest that for the debut, it should well clear 160,000.
You'd
think, but it's not about what you do in week 1. It is what you do down the chain. So for that, it's like, that's where you have to be careful, and you need to make sure that people are invested into your talent at the start that are going to be there on a regular basis. But that brings with it its own kind of set of questions, because there's a question of, in terms of how much money they got. So if they got, for example, $10 million a year, that may be enough to make TNA kind of financially viable. And that's what Carlos Silva was talking about in the summer, wasn't it? It was like, basically, it was like, we need to make this thing viable to move forward. Not, we're going to expand, we're going to become this bigger company. So then what does that actually mean in terms of what talent that you have for this show? And what does it also mean about the retention of talent that you currently have? Because there are a lot of people in that company out of contract. I think the Listening Observer, like this week, was like, Santana is still waiting for new offers on a contract. That's crazy, isn't it? Mustafa Ali, Jake Something, AJ Francis, Steve Macklin, Zachary Wentz, I believe the Inspiration are as well. That was reported by Fightful this weekend. There's others as well. So you've got this huge group of the people listed in their press release who are actually going to be out of contract very, very shortly. So does that mean they will get better contracts? Will that mean that they will have more benefits? As Rich said on One Nation Radio, does that mean that we're actually going to pay for people when they get injured? So you have to do GoFundMes? Is it going to actually help you build a roster, or is that just enough to keep you kind of going and sustainable at this current time, with the hope that, the increased access that you have to your product will then lead to other things? You're looking to try and get pay-per-views numbers up and hoping that then increases everything. Because to me, like, the amount of money, and considering that, you're going to be going live so many times a year, and it's not going to be, Silver's already said it's not going to be, it's going to be live more in the first half of the year than the second half of the year, and they'll be looking at doing maybe 1 in 3 by the end of the year, is what he said on Ariel Helwani's show. And that makes sense, because you look at Collision, the estimate for an episode was like 650,000 for a production, and I don't expect them to have the kind of AEW level production, but, that's the kind of outtake that you're looking. So for Collision, they were looking at, what was it, like 34 million a year in terms of that deal. So if you've got 10 million a year, compared to 34 million for 52 weeks, and that's really just covering the production, you can see that, like, there's not a huge amount of kind of outlay there that's available for other things. And considering that the main reason that they're saying that they took the month off was not just the reset before the TV deal, but also was around budget. So then you just think, okay, how much money is there to spend? Because the difficulty when it comes to the TV launch is you need recognisable names. And they have the Hardys, right? That's that's been their big calling card. And you're going to use names for NXT, but that comes with its own kind of difficulties, and we can talk about that next. But it's like, the other thing that you need to have is people that maybe aren't as exposed to TV as others, that your audience can kind of grow to, you know, that they can kind of become attached to. And that's where you look at AEW, and even with the struggles that I had in December 2019 with ratings and that sort of thing, like one of the big things about that first year that converted people into being AEW fans rather than WWE fans watching AEW as though they were when it was TNA predominantly. You had a lot of WWE fans who watched TNA rather than being TNA fans, was that you attached yourself to these new characters, whether it be like an MJF or a Jungle Boy on, you know, Jurassic Express, or a Darby Allin, or even a Sammy Guevara, you know, Adam Page, I don't know, Britt Baker, like you name it, like, you know, Riho, you attach yourself to these people that you've never seen before on US television, and they were just as important as your Cody Rhodes, your John Moxley, Dean Ambrose, your Chris Jerichos. So you have to have that balance in that, and it's like, one, you need to invest enough to have that, and secondly, you then need to put enough attention on that. So they are huge challenges that they start out with.
Well, I think it also comes back also to what you said about the look of the show and like, well, you know, what's that going to be, and is it going to be changed, and do they have money to do that? Because that kind of ties in a little bit with the expectations around, you know, the nostalgia stuff, right? Is that people from watching, you know, or from seeing WWE or from seeing AEW on television, they have an idea of what wrestling television should look like. And I think you can be successful not doing that. But I think if you're going to be the third show on network television, then maybe you have to think about like, hey, are we going to be different, or are we going to be just lesser? And if we're going to be different, then like you kind of have to lean into being different. But if you're sort of featuring older talent that people know from promotions like WWE, then I don't know if there's as much of a impetus or like a desire to do that. I guess I just feel like that's one of those things where it's like, it's an ill-formed thought, but it's like a conflict between your mission statement, right? Are we going to be an old style wrestling, or are we going to be something different and new? And if we're going to be something different and new, then where do some of these older names fall?
And I guess it's a question of what is TNA's identity now? You know, like how do people see TNA? Because in the past, like, what was TNA's identity other than the name branding that you recognized, or some of the kind of matches that were their kind of thing, like Ultimate X and that sort of thing. But it was like, you've got rid of so many of those things that people associate, even like the six-sided ring, you know, that people associate with TNA. So it's like, what is your identity? And then how does that also mix with the fact that you're looking like you're going to be still regularly using NXT talent? So what makes you different from NXT? Are you just going to be NXT's Collision, effectively, or NXT's Evolve, maybe is more of an accurate on TV? And how does that work? How does that, does that hurt NXT potentially? Because are you then splitting your audience? You're asking to do 2 nights? Well, people pick and choose. We see this with Dynamite and Collision all the time, right? Yep. People pick and choose their time. So then does that affect NXT? And obviously, like, CW are already kind of not happy with the way Big Data Plus panel has impacted on NXT. So there's a risk for doing that. But then you also, you want to be kept separate. I thought it was quite interesting that they at first kind of there was some things put out to like Fightful that said, like WWE were part of helping us get this deal, and then Silver rolled it back in terms of they helped us by having their talent on and not an actual part of it, because that's the other undercurrent as well. Is it's still a case of, is this being done for TNA to become something bigger, to be able to become a more productive company in terms of looking after their talent, being able to offer more jobs,
pay more money.
Yeah, pay more money. There's obviously definitely a lot of people in TNA that want better creative, that want that kind of department to extend. Is it an idea to have this product grow, or is it something that is just sustaining this product, but it's still going to act as some sort of like satellite for WWE that effectively, blocks another potential partner to other wrestling companies? Something that helps them to show that, the antitrust, like it's a fallback antitrust. Well, we help TNA do this, so we can't be that burst for the industry, but also ensuring that we use this NXT talent, so therefore we don't have to employ other talent, and then we can keep wages low, and we can keep people on like part-time contracts essentially, because no one's being paid like anywhere close to what they will be in AEW for a similar role on TV, if you're wrestling Collision. So it's like, what is it? Is it something that will have its own identity, or is it something that's still being used, kind of wielded by WWE as part of this kind of Cold War between the 2 major American companies?
It's going to be interesting. I thought Matt Hardy did his podcast with John Alba and talked about the future direction, and was like, well, we have to have stories. We can't have great matches. We have to have stories, which, to Alba's credit, he kind of pushed back on that. But I thought that was kind of an interesting, the other thing I thought was funny that he said was that, Alba directly asked him, what's the benefit to WWE when it comes to working with TNA? Why would WWE do that? And his response was it gave the NXT wrestlers look like bigger stars because they appeared on TNA, which I thought was really kind of a funny answer.
Interesting answer.
I don't know if I agreed with that, but sure. But I do think it is interesting that you have so much of the focus on the promo video that they showed was on the Hardys, was on these like established stars, that it you'd like to think they're going to try something different, but it seems like it's just going to be kind of more of the same, and it's going to be like NXT Collision essentially.
But some of that is just TNA, to focus on like the names from previous companies at the top of their card.
That's very TNA.
Is TNA. And I get in an aspect that you want the recognizable names in terms of your press releases and that sort of thing,
sure,
or your video package. I kind of get that in some aspects. But then at the same time, I just think that it's a hard road to go down, because also, I mentioned earlier, you want to kind of focus on your own talent and people that you can get attached to. But then if they get attached to a Leon Slater, is he then just going to NXT when his deal comes up next fall?
Right.
If it's a pipeline show, pipeline shows are not really great for network television because people want to follow people and their stories. So then if it's that point, then do they just go and watch NXT? Are you investing in people that are just going to be walking out in 6 months to somewhere else? So that's the danger of it. So it's like you have to create your own ecosystem in a way, and something that is identifiable as your own kind of thing. And that's always been an issue for TNA. I don't think that's ever not been an issue for TNA in the same way that, and say it's been an issue at times with AEW. How many times have we asked Tony? People ask Tony Khan to explain like, what is your brand identity, and he struggles. So that's not that unusual.
We're the best wrestle.
Yeah.
I said that because I know how much you hate that slogan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Love you, baby.
Thank you. But there's a key aspect to it as well, is that, for it going in at the price it's going at, but also what they're looking at from a WWE perspective is how does that determine, the value of AEW. Because it's the same with NXT. So NXT, what they reckon, 28, 30 million a year, and what their ratings are. And then you'll get what now TNA are doing on AMC, and you can compare that. And I think it's quite interesting that Tony Khan is speaking a lot lately in the press about the difference between them and SmackDown since Big Data Plus panel. And he keeps saying, we're closer to WWE than we were at the start of the year. And I think that's quite deliberate, because you want your market value to be determined against SmackDown, which is the bigger value deal, than you do against TNA or NXT on the lower value deals.
Well, I think that kind of leads us into our next topic, Trish.
Does it? Did I improperly segue where I did actually realise?
You did a spectacular segue. Beautiful
Excellent.
Transition, which is the discussion that WBD, the Warner Brothers Discovery, has been sold to Netflix, or part of it. So this is an important thing to understand about this deal, and I think is something that gets missed and whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So Warner Brothers Discovery has split off, or will be split off, into two separate companies. The first is going to consist of their film, studio, and streaming service business. So HBO Max, Warner Brothers Films, all the stuff that shit is part of. And then the second piece is the cable television, which is TNT, TBS, all the channels they own, etc. So Netflix has acquired, or at least has had its offer accepted, for the film studios and streaming service business, not for the cable television business. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, there's a whole bunch of interesting elements to this. The first one is that there's no guarantee that this deal is actually going to go through. There's a bunch of things that are happening with it, which the first of which is that Skydance, which owns Paramount and is run by the Ellison family, they made an aggressive moves to try and acquire this WBD film studio. They were very pissed off that they weren't going to get it, that Netflix came in with a higher offer. There's some discussion that they're going to use the power of the Trump administration to try and shut this down, that they're going to appeal directly to the shareholders and try and do like a hostile takeover thing by saying that they haven't, they weren't getting enough money, that this is like a rigged thing. So there's certainly a possibility that this deal doesn't actually go through. The second piece that's interesting about this is that effectively, if this deal is split into two separate companies, AEW will have a deal with both companies, right? AEW has a deal for their HBO Max for their content, and they have a deal for the television content. So, and they're likely not the only ones. So it's not as though this is going to be a unique situation directly just to AEW. There's probably other, TV shows or whatever that have that deal going on. So that's kind of an interesting thing. The other thing that I've really enjoyed this week is people, confidently predicting what's going to happen with this when no one has any fucking clue how this is going to shake out or how this is going to impact AEW.
What's new?
Yeah, what's new? Nobody knows. It's doom. And I think,
Did you see the incredible Brandon Thurston tweet? It was just like,
yes,
oh yeah, like he was literally just like, yeah, this will mean 3 years of doom on around AEW on podcasts, and I was like, yeah, it will.
Yeah. The thing that I always come back to when we talk about AEW's relationship with Warner Brother Discovery is that you can criticize Tony Khan for a lot of things, and we often do. It's one of our favorite pastimes. But the one thing you cannot criticize Tony Khan for is the way he has navigated the relationship with Warner Brothers Discovery and the way that AEW has handled that relationship, right? Now, you could argue that they shouldn't have accepted the Collision deal, but it's very hard when your boss or your business partner comes to you and says, we'd like you to produce more for us and we'll give you a bunch more money, to say, no, we actually don't want to do that. Like, that's a hard thing to do. Tony Khan was correct back in 2018 when he predicted that he could get a television deal for a wrestling TV show. He was correct that but he was able to finagle that deal, which was not ideal for AEW at the beginning, into something that was able to sustain them through the pandemic. They re-signed that deal with Warner Brothers Discovery in December of 2019. That was a deal that changed the way that their revenue was handled and the way that they paid for TV shows. It got them through the pandemic. He steered AEW into a huge renewal with WBD in Trish 2024. 2023.
2024.
He did these things. The company has been profitable and successful in a way that a second wrestling promotion has not been in this country for years. So I think if there's nothing else, like, one of the things I always find so fascinating about people's insistence on dooming about AEW's future is that, like, it's one of the things people do based on so little evidence, right? Like, there's so many other things to doom AEW over, like the creative, the wrestlers. Like, there's so many things you could doom about, but this is the one thing that he actually seems to know what the fuck he's doing. So, like, I'm kind of in a place of, like, let this man handle this. And when it is fucked up, then we will talk about how it's fucked up. But up until then, it's like, this is the evidence we have for this right now, right? Like, that this is, I don't know. Tell me if I'm crazy, babe.
No, so you're right to list kind of all the different things. So this deal is not done, right? The idea, even in their press release, is to look at completing it in Q3 of 2026. This will have, like, long-fangled kind of things going on about it, because there's huge issues with it from a number of different directions. So yes, you have Skydance and Paramount and everything involved with the Trump administration trying to challenge it from that side. You also have places like the Writers Guild and, even like the EU and stuff looking at it in terms of antitrust, but also looking at in terms of, the fact that it could be a huge threat to kind of cinemas as a whole.
Correct.
Because of how many franchises that they have. So while Netflix can say, we're going to continue to make studio releases go into cinemas at the moment, who's going to guarantee that? Like, people can say anything before they sign a deal. There's nothing in writing.
Right.
So
they're already talking about shortening the release window.
Exactly, right? And so all of these things fundamentally affect those parts of that business. So there are much, much bigger issues, not to be nasty to wrestling, that people have with this than what happens with AEW. Sometimes, I know we live in our bubble, and we do want to talk about how it potentially impacts things on wrestling, because that's what we do. But it is something that is going to be discussed much, much wider than what we are going to do here. So there is a lot of things to come with this. This is going to be challenged not just in the US, but also in the EU and probably in other places as well. So it's not a done deal. It's not something signed off delivered. We're not talking about how everything splits up yet. It's literally just, we'll see how this goes first, and then we all kind of go from there. In terms of what AEW have done, I keep saying, I think the smartest things they've done this year have been with the pay-per-views.
Yes.
So they have been able to demonstrate through their data, their data catchment stuff that they did prior to the last deal being signed, the loyalty of the AEW fan base. And now this year they've been able to demonstrate it to Amazon, which I think is incredibly important, because that may be one of the last pay-per-view providers left in terms of these big streaming giants. I don't see Netflix going into pay-per-view. I don't think they have any interest in it. So, that's very important. But also onto HBO Max, and that's been growing through the pay-per-views. Even like Wrestle Dream, which was kind of down on the All Out number, was before coming back up to the Full Gear number. Even that grew in terms of its share on HBO Max. So it's like you are being able to demonstrate that people are coming to your service or using your service to make these additional purchases. And that is valuable. And as we move into this transitional stage, that becomes even more valuable, because the idea is to you be able to show how many people are going to potentially come to your service if it comes to a different service. So if you are going to Netflix and you're looking at potentially like PLE value, that's what you're looking at, right? You're not looking at pay-per-view value. But then the idea is how many people can you kind of show in terms of loyalty value, especially globally as well, that they will come to this service then for this product, and then they will stay with it. So you won't get the churn, because everything in streaming is about avoiding churn, right? So those sorts of things are very important. I think they're quite important moves that were made with this deal that we kind of underplay. And I keep hammering on about that. I think the debut on Max with All Out and then these subsequent pay-per-views have probably been the most important thing and the biggest news story in AEW this year. Because these are about the things that will safeguard them in the future, because we now have all these different revenue streams around live media, as opposed to just the one TV show a week that became the 2 TV shows a week. So I think that's massively, massively important. And then the idea is, they would potentially have 2 deals, because you've got WBD splitting into like the linear TV operation and the HBO Max going into potentially somewhere else. And they're not the only people to do that. Comcast are doing something similar with theirs. So so you'll see that split off there as well. That's just recognizing where things are going. All the debt's probably going to go onto the TV side. That's something that is going to happen. And then eventually, we don't know how long it is that linear TV is going to survive in its current format. But it's also a thing of things. So the antitrust thing is important, because what we're actually seeing, so after all this expansion in like the 2010s, where you could watch this on this service and you could watch this on this service, and we're actually seeing everything kind of close back up now.
Yep.
So we went from cable to watching like 10 different streaming services, and now everything's kind of closing back up, which means less options for people looking for TV deals. It means less options for creators and that sort of thing, like film studios, all those sort of things, to try and get your media out. So it becomes more of a closed network. So that means basically it's just less opportunity for everyone. That's the biggest fear for this. It's not even about wrestling, is it? It's just less opportunity for everyone and less kind of diversity of content. So that is, to me, like the biggest threat in terms of why this. But this is really at the start of a process that could get really, really messy and could go on for some time. But, Tony's right when he talks about, they've got to 2028, and then we talk about the option, and then they go from there. And then they need to negotiate with, whichever party they could do that. But the important thing for them is to be able to, do the best in terms of their TV numbers, in terms of their rankings and that sort of thing. And then continue to deliver the kind of the numbers in terms of pay-per-view and HBO Max. So someone's got their numbers somewhere, right? But they will become more important in play as they go towards that period, because you have to demonstrate that you can fit all these different mediums now. It's changed. Yes. It's not the same as it was in 2019. It's not the same as it even was in 2023. Things are changing quite rapidly. So the more that you can do that with the more kind of different companies, the better. And I think, the Amazon deal this year, I think, will turn out to be very, very important in the future as well, because, that's somewhere else they've been able to demonstrate. But it's one of those things. I do think it's quite interesting that WBD, if this deal goes down, will still get $5.8 billion from Netflix.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen, there's a kind of a poison pill here where Netflix will pay WBD $5.8 billion if the deal doesn't go through.
Like, that's insane, right? Like,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, you get paid $5.8 billion for something not working.
To not do my job? That'd be great.
It sounds great, doesn't it? But it's one of those things that there's nothing to talk about really yet, other than what details and what's going on. There's no point doing any Doom or anything like that, and it's just like, it's something to keep an eye on. And we can go through like the details of what's happening at each part of the story, but there's nothing else that that will impact anything in terms of wrestling at this time.
Yeah, and anybody who claims that there is, or they know that there is full of shit. You shouldn't be listening to them.
You're rather vicious today. Have you noticed?
I'm in a mood, Trish. I'm in a mood. I don't know what to tell you.
You're vicious.
I am.
Vicious.
I'm not the nicest version of myself.
Says me, but you're being vicious.
Yeah, it's good.
What's going on?
I do think it's interesting, because we have another beautiful transition moment here, because when we talk about NXT and TNA bringing down the value of AEW, you could also talk about AEW bringing down the value of WWE, because one of the interesting things about this is that the argument that is being made by Tony Khan, which I think is a valuable argument, and one that I think if you look at the numbers, you can kind of see that Raw on Netflix may not be doing that many more views than AEW Dynamite.
I don't know. I hate we don't know.
God damn it, they're still getting paid a shit fuck ton more money.
Oh yeah,
so do you think the percentage of views that WWE Raw on Netflix is getting is worth the disparate percentage in the amount that they're getting paid? That's my main comment, right? When you want to talk about the value being brought down.
I don't know if they're looking for that though. Aren't they looking for how many subscribers they get additionally that they can associate with WWE content being watched? And not churn, because that's the whole thing. Like, the views are something they stick up as like a highlight thing, but they want people to stay there and subscribe. I do think it's very, very interesting that they didn't go after UFC as a whole.
Correct.
And that's why Paramount and Skydance got it. That always sticks out for me, as in that's a breakaway from their general way of doing things in recent years, because there used to be a difference between the Amazon philosophy and the Netflix philosophy. So Amazon we'll have part of something, right? So we'll have, I don't know, Thursday night football, or we'll have Champions League on a Tuesday night in Europe for, football. I'm not saying soccer, don't make me do it. Or we're going to have, the autumn nations for rugby. So they like to have bits of things. And obviously their offering's more diversified because it also includes like Amazon Prime and that sort of thing, and music and audiobooks and whatever. But it's like their whole thing was, we just need part of something because that is enough to get you to subscribe and to stay with us. Whereas Netflix have been, we want everything. We want the cumulative. We want the whole product. We are the home of this product. And now they're moving away from that. And that was very much, they're the first live sports offering, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. But their first kind of live offering for sports on a weekly basis was Raw. And they're already pulling away from looking for a second product like that.
I just think it's worth a discussion point whenever there's this level of like doom about like, oh my God, AEW is screwed. It's like, you can play a reverse Uno card on that real quick, right?
But they've got a 5-year deal. They've got a 5-year get out, haven't they? And a 10-year deal.
Correct.
With Netflix. And I think you can look at what's happening in USA, you look at that relationship and you look at the quality of SmackDowns and things that have been putting on, you think, what's going on there? Like, I think that's kind of an interesting one, because in the end of the day, like the one that we can see that's more measurable is the difference between SmackDown and Dynamite, right? Because you've got, as much as flawed as that measurement might be, and we still have huge concerns over kind of 18 to 34 and huge concerns over turnover rate or non-turnover rate, whatever. But it's like, at least it's the same measurement. Like, you can compare it.
Correct.
Whereas streamers, like how many seconds they're watching, how are we detailing how many people in a household are watching, how are we detailing the time when we're actually shortening it from the live broadcast to the repeat broadcast. There's so many variables there that you can't see. So in a way, like, that's why I mentioned earlier the TNA one is like, if he can demonstrate that they are closer to WWE in that monetary fashion than to NXT and TNA, then that will be more beneficial to them going forward. It's a strange one. It's just something to keep an eye on, because the WWE properties have actually been hit the hardest from this Big Data Plus panel change.
They really have.
And that's not to say that AEW haven't been hit, because they have.
No, they absolutely have.
But NXT's been hit absolutely the hardest, and SmackDown's been hit pretty hard as well.
Speaking of WWE's partners and their happiness level with them, this week we had Freddie Prinze Jr. doing a relatively brief aside during his podcast where he talked about the fact that he had spoken to somebody that he worked with or that he knows that is with ESPN, and they said that they were not happy. He said that that person indicated they were not happy with the performance of the WWE PLEs on ESPN so far, which... we had some, non-denial denials, I guess would be the best way to describe it, from WWE. But one of the things that I think this rang true to a lot of people who, like us, watch this kind of stuff, because one of the things we haven't seen is any press release from ESPN. Jesus fucking Christ, Sarah. Any press release from ESPN touting any numbers of any of these PLEs that they've shown so far. They have at no point been like, this was fantastic. And the way that WWE talked about it during their earnings call seemed to suggest that they were looking for this service to grow. So it was kind of fun. The non-denial denials were kind of funny when it came to this. But it seems, it certainly might not be true. It could be some random person he talked to. But it does seem like it's a realistic parse. Again, we're talking about... this year where Saturday Night Main Event, we have Cena's final thing, which is going to be shown just on Peacock and not any other service. So,
it's the thing about the ESPN thing is that, as we spoke about at the time, Mark Shapiro was very much, we have to attract people that wouldn't normally buy the ESPN service. And that's the difference between now and Peacock. Because Peacock, you may have had that included as part of your cable deal, or you can access it as a low price. And you might watch 100 other things on there. You might be getting the next few months to watch the Winter Olympics upcoming in February. Yeah, but that's the Olympics has been their biggest driver subscribers for, God, like, especially the other year, it was like crazy, wasn't it? Like the Summer Olympics, how much that kind of picked up. So I imagine it'd be similar for the winter, maybe not to quite a degree. But it's like, when it comes to their relationships with ESPN, I thought it was interesting that this was the first pay-per-view that was like really heavily pushed on ESPN, and we still didn't get a press release.
Yep.
And it makes me feel like, okay, so they've said that they've done their partner model, because what we did here on the WWE the conference call after the TKO results come out was them talking about kind of, if we get the right support sort of thing, I'm paraphrasing here.
Yes.
Then ESPN, then we know how big things can get. And now you're looking at how much support are you getting from ESPN. So if they're upping that, they want to see results that come with that, right?
Yes.
There has to be a balance there. And you can say, like, they're looking for the big events. The paraphrasing was, it's like, oh, we've had WrestlePalooza, which wasn't a real event, even though they stuck, massive their degree. They threw everything they can at Lesnar, Cena, you did your Cody Rhodes Drew title match, you did your AJ Lee return. So you tried to throw as much at the wall of that. So it's kind of weird to say, oh, it's just a name, but you tried pretty hard there. And then, okay, Crown Jewel, you didn't. But then it's like, even though you did Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, it's still a pretty big match. It's not like, oh, we went to absolutely nothing. And then, but you're saying, oh, Survivor Series, it's a traditional kind of big match. It's the last PLE with John Cena on it. So that's also something where you're looking at it and going like that. So for me, I think the interesting things with their business with ESPN is we still haven't had one where they're showing it on ESPN television. Does that change when we get into the new year, once college football's out of the way, the college bowl games, the NFL playoffs? Are we looking at that being like maybe WrestleMania first hour? Is that what we're going to do? Is like, because are you thinking the Rumble, which we still need to get time for, really, being that it's in Saudi Arabia, is that going to run in the middle of the night in Saudi Arabia in order to ride at prime time in the US? And then what are they going to do with WrestleMania? Because that's the key thing for them. So when you look at what they're doing now, and you look at the fact that Cena is out next week, and, that's done, but the key thing is where are they going for Mania, and how do they make that bigger than this year with having Cena and the possibility of The Rock behind it, even though he never materialized? Because
they're fucked. Nobody like that Survivor Series was critically panned by a lot of people who love WWE programming, like not just crusty old WWE haters like us, but a lot of people who hate WWE.
Call him crusty.
I'm a little crusty right now. WWE like fans shit all over it. My TikTok was full of like people who I normally see very happy with WWE who were unhappy with it. You had fans booing. You had a lot of complaints about the seats. You had a lot of complaints about people who paid a lot of money and weren't able to see the ring. There were a lot of issues with that. And I think, you had the ending where you audible boos, even on the broadcast, and then nobody seeming to care at all about Cody versus Roman and this intense stare down that's supposedly going to lead us to the Rumble or to WrestleMania. Like,
who knows? Yeah, they keep throwing that in and out. But yeah, I just think that you can tell that there was a real lack of excitement with that finish, and you've got to generate things that are going to generate real excitement, because you've now got to sell it to ESPN as well, in a way.
Right.
Because they've then got to sell it to everybody else for you.
Yes.
And that's what you're looking for. So that's what you say you're looking for out of this relationship. They're looking for people to come in as subscribers for these big events. So it's their first kind of big hurdle now of like, you've got to deliver for the Rumble and you've got to deliver for WrestleMania, because these are your two big branded events. And, that's going to determine what they look like in terms of future deal. And they've done very well in falling upwards,
they very well, absolutely. Every time you think they're dead, they manage to somehow get another $1 billion TV deal.
They fall out with Fox and it's like, okay, we've got another deal. And then it's the same thing with USA don't want to pay that for Raw, we'll go to Netflix. How are they doing Netflix? So they have been very lucky with their timing and that, and I think they've been very clever in a way to sustain themselves with long-term deals, considering how volatile everything is at the moment. So that was very wise. But it's like, where do you go from here? Because you've got to deal with the people that you think that you should be on. What did Nick Khan say this week? He thinks that they will replace one of the NHL or MLB or something like that as the fourth biggest property in the US, right? This is nearly as good as it's an Americana thing that can be taken all across the world, a representation of America, isn't it?
Jesus Christ, dude.
I'm never letting that go. I'm sorry. It's still the funniest comment ever.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah. But it's like, so you've got this thing now where it's like if they play their part, they give you all the coverage on all the ESPN channels and that sort of thing. Outside of, we'll see if when they broadcast an actual broadcast of a PLE on there, then you've got to do your part as well. And can you demonstrate the loyalty of your fan base to do that? Is there enough to justify? They're never going to. It's going to be a loss leader. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
Like it was for Peacock. It's not going to be something that ever breaks even for ESPN. You shouldn't even be looking for that. Like if you're looking at how many content hours are compared to that, it's not going to be that. The idea is to get people who would not normally sign up for that service to sign up for ESPN. That's a challenge, and this is what their first big test will be this period of January to April for WrestleMania, because that's when the deal was supposed to start. So that's when we'll see if the machine works. That's when we'll see if they've got anything that is attractive enough, if they're able to build anything that's strong enough to have this really, really strong debut. Especially when you consider some of the things they've been able to deliver in previous years. Have they got anything that they can generate in the next few months that will rival that? And that's I think a huge question. They continue their other parts of their business where your destination PLEs still do quite strongly.
Yep.
And then we're seeing kind of fallaways and their TV numbers continuing during this period as we kind of expected, really. And then
it's really
that big test.
No, I was going to say it's very interesting to look at the post-Cena numbers, because there are definitely some spots, and I do this not at the level that you do, but there are definitely some cities where they're really still strong, right?
Yep. Toronto's a good one.
Yep. But in a lot of other places, you're seeing like pretty consistent 30% like for like decreases, in terms of what they're selling. And that's, they're coming off of like a historic boom period, but that has to be sort of terrifying. And then they've got a couple places like that Grand Rapids number where it's just like, holy shit, who's going to this? Especially considering that they're, obviously they made a switch when it came to NXT and the way that they were doing the live shows for NXT, where they, like AEW, went to smaller buildings. But those shows haven't been like lighting the world on fire from a ticket perspective either. So I don't know. I mean, even if you assume that they're going to get Jericho and he's going to debut at the Rumble, like, is that going to be enough to carry them through? Like, is that going to cause a level of like excitement that's going to juice their ticket numbers or their PLE numbers? It's going to be interesting to see it as this happens. I think it's also worth pointing out that Cena's last show is not sold out as of right now. Tickets are crazy expensive, but you know.
That's what they want though, isn't it? That's what they say with these ones where they have a demand. The idea is that they sell out at the end. But that's not working for their other shows where they are reducing prices.
Right.
And it's still not selling out. So that's where you're looking at, okay, you want because that's the thing, isn't it? It's not like they want these shows, to be their regular TV to be destination shows. They want to be able to sell them as part of packages. Like they tried to do in Tampa when they tried to add NXT on the end back in May, and what they've tried to do with sharing it with like UFC shows. We'll have Friday Night SmackDown, we might have UFC, or we have Friday Night SmackDown, we might have an SNME or a PLE or whatever. So that's part of what they want to do to increase their kind of value of their live event offering. So that is something it's something to keep an eye on, and I still see there's some very denials. They're still greatly hot, and it's like, they have still huge parts of their business that are up, in terms of the revenue driving, the way that they now drive kind of sponsorship revenue, the way that they're running live events is earning them more money. But it's like, again, it's that thing of revenue versus popularity, right? So what we can see through the TV measures, what we can see through the live attendance numbers, that sort of thing. So, they're into an interesting part of their year. Did you see on the Cena show that Cena and Gunther are going on first?
This blows my fucking mind. Cena and Gunther are going to go first, and then they're going to have, right now so far announced, is Bayley versus Sol Ruka. And in a shock of shocks, and a kind of an amusing one, Cody Rhodes versus Obafemi, and not Ricky Saints, who was the other person up for that was decided last night, and the NXT.
No, they got to keep that match. That's a money match. You got to keep that match from main roster. When Ricky makes a main roster, you've got to run that match then, you know? You got to do it then. Like, why would you burn it? I'm going
to get pregnant before Ricky Saints makes the main fucking roster. I'll tell you that for free.
Why would you run that on Saturday night's main event? It might only be the biggest views Saturday night main event on Peacock for the remainder of this contract. Why would you run it there? You know, that's like that. Why you got to save this big money match? It needs to be on like November 13th SmackDown. No, it's not making SmackDown. Cody's going to NXT.
I just hope they told this guy that before they announced it. Could you imagine thinking, oh my God, I'm going to face Cody, and then having the rug pulled out from under you and finding out, no, actually it's going to be Oba Femi, and it should fucking be Oba Femi. Let's be realistic. But
it shouldn't be an exhibition match, though. I would make it a world title match.
Yeah, it's not going to be, though.
Because it doesn't hurt for him as an NXT champion to wrestle Cody as a world champion and not have his belt on the line. Because they've done things like that so many times before, you know, especially when he had the US title on other people like Cena. So it's like, you can just do that. Like, that would make more sense, because exhibition matches, what's the fucking point? Like, I don't.
The point is to make Cena look like he fucking cares about the kids. Like,
I don't care. Yeah, he's never cared in his life. He doesn't
now. But the whole point is to make it seem like he gives a shit about the kids in NXT, and this is about sharing his spotlight and all that other bullshit.
No one's going to remember anything else.
They're going to fucking leave. How many people are going to bail for the exits as soon as this fucking match is over?
But that's the same thing as we say, well, like the Tanahashi match going on last is like people would, and you will get that because people are coming for John Cena.
Yes,
they are coming to see John Cena's last match. That's what they're coming for. That's what they paid the money for.
$5,000 a ticket for Bayley versus Sol Ruka. Like, come on,
harsh. That's harsh, but true, but harsh.
Listen, I mean, like, come on. I'm happy.
To be honest.
I'm happy that they're giving these guys the opportunity, but let's be realistic. Like, and Cena going on Simmons, which is like douchebag central, douchebag versus I'm sorry, and I know there's people who listen to our podcast who like Bill Simmons, but him going on there and being like, well, it wasn't going to work because you need like a year or two to get a heel turn over. What the fuck was that? Like, the guy just takes no responsibility for anything involving in this retirement run.
I'm just a wrestler. I don't have anything. I just do what I'm told. I have nothing to do with anything.
Danielson did last year, where it's like, oh, I got nothing to do with this. Like, I didn't really want to be involved in this. I guess I'll retire if I have to. Like, what the fuck, my guy? I don't know. That was just... It didn't stop people from getting 700 headlines out of that 1-2 hour podcast.
Yeah, well, look, if you can have an AI-generated headline for clickbait, that's what you do these days, you know? But...
Yeah, they're all going to leave. No, everybody's going to turn it off. I don't know why on earth they would put this fucking shit on first. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
I think it's bizarre because... It also says something about what Saturday Night's main event is now, because honestly, you could load this show up, right? And they're obviously prioritizing their first of the year on Netflix. Where they're doing the CM Punk Bron Breakker match. But it's
huge.
Like, but you think that you could have done, I don't know, he could have defended on that show. All of your champions could have potentially defended on that show, or more than that. But you're not doing that. So you're doing some exhibition matches and you're doing Cena's retirement. So in a way, it's like you're not making it as a bigger show as you could do. And that's kind of weird. I don't know if that's because it's been moved down to Peacock, you know, from NBC. Yeah. But it's like, I get the whole, like, we're going to sell it as a philosophy, as, oh, we're going to showcase people that, you know, have been on WWE television before.
For years.
It's like, so it's not like, in a way, it's like playing the NXT is still this developmental thing that's not seen. It's still in a dark cupboard somewhere in Florida.
It doesn't have its own national television show.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, we've been promoting NXT as a separate brand since the middle of the 2010s, right?
And as a television brand since 2019.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, now we need to showcase the future. It's like, they're on TV every fucking week. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't get that. I just think that, it definitely says something about how they're seeing this Saturday Night's main event. It's also a very strange thing to do for Cena, but maybe it's just that the UFC motto, the kind of thing of, we'll give them enough to sell these tickets, and at the end of the day, the Cena retirement is going to do that. Right. We don't give a fuck about anything else. Like, we'll
save the other stuff for another show that we need to pay, that we need to get somebody to pay
and we'll dribble through all these things. So you never get, like... which is funny because the opposite that I did with WrestlePalooza was trying to throw everything in one show, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, so we don't give everything away at once, so we just give you the Cena retirement. And maybe you might have some like these other bits. But it's like, yeah, it's bizarre. I don't get that, especially the amount of money people have paid. You think it'd be more similar to what they did with like MSG, where they loaded up everybody on that show, or at Boston, and instead they're kind of doing this. So it's kind of like, and I think the presentation of Cena has been awful this year.
Yeah.
And I think the last few months has been awful. Like, people just want to see him win. They just want to enjoy it. Or maybe you do a face-versus-face match where he comes close and then you do, like, the handshake. But we're not doing that. We're just having him look like a complete geek. Like, we geek him out of Brock Lesnar. Or, we'll do the geek finish in the Dominic Mysterio match where it was clear everyone in the stadium was more interested in that than anything else on the show by a long way. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's like, get more of the stuff what you did in Boston. That makes sense. Like, what are you doing this for? And
I mean, you're doing it like, the bitchy part of me says you're doing it because nobody's going to be a bigger star than Triple H. You don't want anybody getting more attention and getting to be bigger than Triple H.
Okay. So we need to have a bet, right?
Yeah. Oh, is he coming out first? Like, how is Triple H inserting himself in this Saturday
It's
night
got to
main
do
event?
it. He's got to do it, right? It's like, he's got to do it. So
does he come out first and then come back as part of the retirement ceremony where he does something like there's a speech or something? Like, how much of the broadcast is going to be Triple H?
No, there's got to be two bets, right? So there's got to be that. That's one. And the second one is, does Donald Trump or Vince McMahon turn up?
I say no to Trump.
Okay.
He's sundowning really hard right now. I don't think he can do anything at night. So I say no to Trump. I say
Like he's some sort of fucking vampire.
no, like dementia patients.
Oh,
Sundowning
shit.
and dementia
Is that
patients.
what it means? Right.
Yes.
Okay. Got
Yes,
you.
there's a certain period of time where the older people who are suffering from cognitive issues, they start to really lose it
Got you.
because they're tired. So you don't see, and if you follow what's going on with Donald Trump, you do not see him at night as much anymore. He is not out and about the way he once was.
Oh, no, he was on the World Cup draw, and that draw was ludicrous. So who knows? Like the fucking village people. We had this is a complete sideway. We have a commentator called Jonathan Pierce in the UK, and he did his best Graham Norton Eurovision impression where he just took the piss out of everything. And
Pavarotti opened up.
It was like the best thing ever because you just had someone going, "This is just so fucking stupid." He was like, "Yeah, by the time we finish this, we might get to the first game of the World Cup." But it was just like, it's just really... But yeah, no, I guess that's two of the long-term questions that people have asked about this one. And Cena again has talked about his relationship with Vince, hasn't he, this week? And
I kind of want to say no to both.
Yeah?
I kind of want to say no to both. I could be wrong, but I think my gut's telling me no to both.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's interesting it's in Washington if Trump isn't there. But I think he's at Army-Navy. Is it Army-Navy this weekend? There's a big football game, isn't there, in college football game in Washington. So, but yeah, the fact it's going on first blows my mind as well, especially when it's PLE, because what's the reason for going on first? Like, there isn't one, right? Like,
Nope.
You don't need to... It doesn't matter where you structure it. It absolutely does not matter. Like, what are you trying to do? Get on there before the late college football game?
Is it because they have the 2-hour hard out and they got fucked by that so many times?
Well, maybe the Gunther thing wasn't it?
Yeah.
They fucked that up with Goldberg.
Yeah.
So maybe that has a consideration of it. Maybe it's going to be like that SmackDown where Cena had like an hour and a quarter. Maybe
they're going to milk this.
Like look at this. Like yeah, you look at the rest of that card. Like yeah, absolutely, you could see that actually, couldn't you? An hour and a quarter of Cena, and that's it. Then he says he rides into the sunset, and we see if we believe him or not. And then WWE have to figure out how to draw as much revenue without him.
I'm glad I don't have that kind of an executive job where I have to worry about revenue, bringing in new business.
But you have to worry about enough things. Airports.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We're moving on from WWE because they suck onto something fun and awesome to talk about, which is, first of all, if you have not listened to us recently, you don't know about the Social Suplex newsletter. The Social Suplex newsletter is something that comes out once a month. It is a newsletter that's produced by folks affiliated with the Social Suplex Network. It's on socialsuplex.com. It is a fantastic newsletter. It covers so much stuff. There's nobody else doing the depth of coverage and the breadth of coverage that the Social Suplex newsletter is doing. And I am incredibly impressed by the entire team. Every time I read this, it's just stunning from start to finish. And it got a lot of publicity. Trish, you did a media tour this week. You appeared on multiple outlets talking about the article that you produced that came out last week about Tanahashi's final road, which was how the match came together between him and Okada at the Tokyo Dome in January, and everybody wanted to use the word machinations. Everybody who talked about this used the word machinations, and everybody pronounced it differently, and I was endlessly amused each time. But all of the political maneuvering that got us to a place where we are seeing Tanahashi's final opponent as Okada. And this was, I have to tell you guys, this was an amazing article. Trish has been talking about elements of this story for like over a year, and watching her piece together different things as how they happen and follow up with questions and be like, hey, what about this? And hey, what about this? I'll get schmaltzy. She's going to get real mad at me. I am so privileged. I am. But no, I am. Fuck you. I am privileged to see how your brain works and how you put this shit together. It is one of the joys of my life is to get a message from Trish saying, hey, what about this? And be like, oh, it's a highlight of my fucking day. And I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. So I'm just really excited that everybody's been reading this. I'm really excited that you are getting the attention that you are for it, that the newsletter is getting the attention that it deserves for it. And I think it's just fucking spectacular. So Trish asked folks on our Discord if they had any questions about the article, because, and if you want to hear Trish talk about this, she was on Pollock and Thurston on Post Wrestling. She was on, she did an episode of Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast with our friend Jesse Collings, which was spectacular. I really enjoyed that. And then we also had folks, Wrestling Observer Radio, discuss this, as well as Wrestle Talks, if you want to talk about different media discussing this. So it was all over the place this week. Is there anything you want to talk about, Trish,
funny.
before we
said
get
to you,
into questions that folks had?
Sorry for talking over that, but I think it's really funny in terms of how... maybe sound like Muttley from fucking... Racky Races. Anyway, I got distracted on my thought now. It's weird how these things kind of blow up. I said this to you early in the week. I thought it was really, really strange how it kind of overnight, kind of Sunday and a Monday, Tuesday, it was like, whoa, how's that kind of picked up? Because, I didn't write this for us to get like crazy amounts of attention or kind of anything like that, or we don't have a Patreon. We're never going to have a Patreon because I don't like it. It's not for me, and for us. And I did it because numerous reasons. I realized when the match got announced, I think I said, I think I can write this story. And then I realized that, hang on a minute, I can get more parts of this story.
Yes.
Because I'm completely thick. And at one point I was like, how do I get the Okada part? And then I went, oh shit, I can do that. I was like, hang on a minute, I think I can get that better than anybody. Like, oh shit, let's just see if we can. And then we could. So it was like, I felt really dumb about that bit, I must admit. I was just like, oh yeah, like, why didn't we think of that before? No, but the whole point is that this story's been talked about in weird ways in some parts, all right?
Yes.
So I think there is these things that happen. So you have people that have been following this story all year. And most of them are people that follow New Japan, who talk about New Japan. Like Keeping It Strong Style on it, or like We Were Stiff, like Super J-Cast, and I'm sure there's others.
Yep.
I apologize that I don't get to listen to everybody. But, the outlets I listen to the most when it comes to Japanese coverage. People have been covering this and talking to Japanese sources about this all year. And then you've got people that have kind of talked about it periodically and then come in at the end, like The Observer. And then someone like Fightful that come in right at the end and, we're just going to get what we get. So it's like, you've got all these different perspectives and you've got different people leaking to different people from different companies because you've got multiple companies involved. It's not just WWE, AEW, New Japan, CMLL now. And then, so you've got all these different things and how they view things. And the funny thing is that the way people talk about it is different in each side, each company as well. So my whole idea was I want to put all of this on paper. I want as much of these viewpoints out there. I want to contextualize as much as possible so you can kind of see what everything means, why people would feel the way that they do, why people would want what they want, and to kind of put it all in there. And I'm lucky, I don't have the expectation of me. I was like, I don't have Tony Khan shouting down my ear if I write something I don't like. I don't have Paul Levesque doing that. Hey, they don't answer my emails, so it doesn't really matter. And with New Japan, I have a good relationship with people that if they want to feedback to it, they could. But it wasn't. I'm not going to get pressure over it either. And that's kind of an easier position to be in. We're still in a position where people are like, oh, you don't know anybody. And that's great because it fucking helps, right? It helps
really
me.
does.
It really helps me in how we operate. But the whole key thing is that I also wanted to show that, you know, a lot of these stories have been dismissed as, conspiracy theories or this and that. And actually, no, a lot of what they've got is the story is right. It might be told from one perspective, right? So for a lot of the New Japan podcasts, it's being told, like, what they're hearing is from New Japan, so it's from the New Japan perspective.
Correct.
But it doesn't mean that it's inaccurate. It's their version of events. And that was a key thing for me with this, is like, you were going to see how many versions of events there were. And the other thing, like, before we get to questions, I did think what was interesting was I hoped that if people did hear it, that it would open up other people to say things. And we kind of did get a bit of that. So,
yes.
For example, you know, even just like with the Wrestling Observer, I thought there was some interesting exchanges on the last Monday nights where
Yes.
Dave actually said, you know, Tanahashi did want to face Nakamura. Now, this is something that, you know, Warren Hayes did a great breakdown of it, actually, on his channel as well. And one of his last questions that I really wanted to answer, like, I wanted to shout back at the screen, like, it was like, why would New Japan do this? Why would they risk potentially the AEW and CML relationships? And they weren't thinking they were at first, because they were hoping that, you know, Nakamura would be out of his deal because that was the agreement, etc. But it's like, why would they do this? And the key thing why they would do this, and other people suggested this and got torn down for it, but this is what Dave is saying, is that, you know, Tanahashi did want to face Nakamura, end quote.
Yes.
And I think if you watched anything that Tanahashi has done in recent months, if you watched his interviews or anything like that, like, you would get that impression, okay? And the fact is that, you know, David also put it in the Observer, you know, that was who he wanted. And that was the only name that we heard back in January, outside a very, very fucking cold Otter Gymnasium, rained on, horrible day, but I had a good time. I'm not sure the boys enjoyed it as much as I did, but I had a good time. But from there, it was like, there wasn't any other names. It wasn't, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing that. The first thing we heard was, they're going to try and get Nakamura. That's who he wants for his retirement match. And I, you know, at the time, I just went, okay, because as much as we might say, and what they eventually came to, you know, like, Okada is a better match for him physically and being able to do things physically, you know, the struggles that he's had this year, you know, if you only got to think back to the Adachi Budokan with Gabe Kidd and how much he struggled with that one, it's like, it makes sense. But for Tanahashi, you know, Nakamura's the guy that he came in with. Nakamura's the guy that he faced in his first Tokyo Dome main event 20 years ago. You know, 20 years ago this year, 2005, Wrestling World at Tokyo Dome, January 4th. So it's like, it's not about, in a way, us looking and going, what would be the best match? But for him, the original way they were thinking was, this is who he wants, you know?
Right.
And it was interesting to have Dave say that, because I've seen so many people dismissed for saying that, because, you know, they looked at his body language and the words he was saying. There was a bit after the thing got announced where he was talking about acceptance of the match, and I kept bashing my head against the wall going, oh my God, Dan, this is the closest I've ever seen to you, like, being, like, open about something. But yeah, so it's like, there's an element of what did he want, and the way that Dave's talked about it since as well is what matches up with lots of people in New Japan, is that Tanahashi wanted Nakamura. Now, you can look at whether you think that would be better business or not. I don't think any of the options of the four make any difference in terms of business.
No.
I think they're all great business movers.
Yes.
You know, they're all massive draws, you know, in Japan, or would be massive draws in Japan in this situation. And I don't think it makes a blind bit of fucking difference, because it's Tanahashi. You know, they were already at 31,000 before anyone got announced. They could easily clear 50,000 here. This is easily, I think, going to be the biggest, you know, non-WWE show of the year next year. So it's like, and in fact, actually, we'd have to look at the size of some of the stadiums next year, because if WWE in Saudi Arabia, is that going to get them over 50K paid? Oh, I don't know. So actually, it could be one of the biggest paid shows of the year, couldn't it? Could be the biggest paid show. That's something to keep an eye on. We'll put that. I'm going to keep that in mind. That's just set my geek sides. Yeah, my geek sides go on the side now. I'm like, I'm going to check that one out. But you know, it's going to be a huge, huge show, and that's off the base of Tanahashi. It didn't matter which one in terms of the financial thing.
Well, that's where it was like, oh, you know, once they announced Okada, they sold 9,000 tickets.
They were going to do that anyway.
Exactly. Like, they were, like, this idea that it was because of Okada is ridiculous. Like, I'm sure that didn't hurt.
No, they're all successful draws, right? So it's not like he was saying, oh, I'm going in with Yoshitatsu. Sorry, I'm picking Yoshitatsu. So I'm going to pick on Noah today. But it's like, yeah, so it wouldn't have mattered in that case. They were all phenomenal draws that would have worked in this situation, and there would have been enough ties to in the marketing to do it. And their marketing has improved in the second part of this year. You know, it's got a lot stronger. All the issues that we had around kind of the G1 and not promoting Tanahashi's 100th win and lots of other things like that. The promotion of this match in particular, you know, it's got across into like Instagram, into TikTok. You're seeing him on like food blogs and stuff.
I am seeing him on food TikTok blogs, which I was kind of shocked by, but there he was.
Yeah, and he's in phenomenal shape. Like he's on a real hard diet and supplements as well. Like, he's working real fucking hard to be in the best possible shape that he can be for this. So, you know, at the end of the day, like we're now at the point where it's Okada. You know, we know that Tanahashi wanted Nakamura. We can see all the constraints in terms of what caused like that it didn't happen, and they've gone with Okada. It's not to say Okada is a lesser option. It's just a different option. And I get the argument. You know, I've seen a lot of people argue in terms of, you know, I'm not even going to get into like the people that just want Tony Khan to fail, right? And want them to have no. So, but there are people that think, you know, Tanahashi gave his entire life, his body to this company. He is one of the key reasons that this company grew and was successful, and his lack of selfishness also made sure that he increased, you know, its level of success, helped it grow. He recognised he needed people at the top of the mountain with him. You know, there's other people like John Cena, let's be honest, you know, Nexus, what happened to them? You know, you can look at so many examples, you know, Dean Ambrose, what happened to, like, I could pick up hundreds of them. But it's like, the whole idea was that we need other people to elevate, and if it means I step back slightly or I step sideways, then I will do it. The company comes first. I never talk bad about the company. I never talk back about anyone that we work with. You know, that never tired slogan they has, that is Tanahashi. Like, he's constantly the company man, and for once could we give him what he wants? And I can understand that argument, because that's what you're looking at, but you're also doing it in this climate, and this climate is this climate. Like, and also, you know, at the end of the day, WWE, once they start playing games, you probably know where it's going from there.
Right. And they started playing games, which I think you made very clear in the article.
Yes. So, you know, I know Dave said that the only thing he heard was that they could work the match right there. We had numerous sources throughout, you know, tell us that he was going to be let go. He'd asked for his release and they were going to allow it. And then they pulled that back. And then they said, well, you can do it because in your contract it says that you can work an additional match. You can work additional matches in Japan with, you know, once it's signed off by us, which is what happened with the Muto match at the Nippon, the Budokan, which should have been the Tokyo Dome match for Muto, but wasn't because they took too long and fucked about, which is the way they do things. But it's like, then it becomes more difficult. Then you have the AEW bit, and I thought what was a really interesting follow-up was Brian Alvarez, you know, basically saying, he had two things that I thought were interesting. Yes. So he said, one, there are people that believe that Tony shut it down, there are people that deny that completely. And as I said in the article, I think both things to be true, because I think it's semantics. Because what you're saying is, you know, the words that we got was, you know, I had the word serious repercussions if they did this, right? If they still ran with Nakamura above, you know, IWGP AEW wrestler Takeshita. And that's what Brian said, you know, he said that was the major issue, is that he would be below, Takeshita would be below with the IWGP Championship, below a WWE wrestler. And that there are people that believe that he didn't shut the match down, there's people that think they did. And so those were quite interesting follow-ups, because, you know, you can have that both. Serious repercussions, serious consequences. There's others as well. I've got phrasing from different people from different sides and different sources. And the sheer number of sources with this, you know, there's so many. And it's probably a good opportunity before we get into questions, but just me to say thank you, to be honest, because the amount of people that worked on us with this, and that's the best way to do it. I could have wrote this story without asking anybody, but it's one, not my story. It's a lot of people's story that I wanted to put together. But also, it's a case of the best information, and the way that you can do it, the best way you can deliver it is to talk to as many people as possible. You know, to look at, say, hey, this is a story I've got, what story have you got? And then you can kind of find the through lines, and you're going to find more of that story and the accuracy with the more people that you talk to. And that includes talking to people, you know, with New Japan sourcing. It means talking to people with AEW sourcing, talking to people in companies. And that makes it so much more valuable than just saying, this is what I know.
Well, I think one of the things that I really liked about the article, and one of the things that I like about you, and part of the reason why we get along really well, shut up, is I think you did a really good job here of making everybody's motives seem understandable and reasonable. Like, there were no bad guys in this story, which I really appreciated, because You can understand why people in New Japan who wanted to make this possible for Tanahashi were frustrated that it could not happen.
Yep.
You can understand why Tony Khan would be like, guys, if you put Nakamura at WWE contracted Nakamura at the top of this card, that's a problem. That's not going to be a good thing for me, right? You can understand why WWE would be like, oh, we could fuck with this guy a little bit. Let's fuck with this guy a little bit, right? Like you get the motives behind all of these people, and it's very hard to, I mean, maybe with the exception of WWE because they fucking suck, but like it's very hard to be like, oh, so and so's a bad guy. And I think that's one of the things I find so frustrating these days about wrestling media is that because so much of the way we interpret these relationships is tribal, it comes down to good guys and bad guys, right? Yep. And like this person's a good person and this person's a bad person. It's one of the things I find so frustrating about the way people talk about AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling is like, AEW is bad, New Japan's good, or vice versa, where each promotion has its own motivations and its own problems that they're trying to solve, right? Nobody's, Tony Khan is not there intentionally trying to fuck with Tanahashi, right? He has his own reasons behind saying, hey, there's going to be repercussions here, right? I just thought that was one of my favorite parts about it, and I thought that's why it was so successful for me as a long form piece, is that compassion that I thought I really appreciated.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to say more than that because I.
All right, then let's talk about.
Let's do some questions. Let's go.
So you don't have to be uncomfortable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Kelly Clarkson with Wayfair. My favorite thing about the holidays? Decking out my whole house. It's not a competition, but if it was, well, I'd win the season with Wayfair. Outdoor inflatable Santa? Got it on Wayfair. Trees, lights, and ornaments? Wayfair. Hosting must-haves like dining sets, beds, sheets, and towels? Wayfair. For everything in your style delivered with fast and free shipping, visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app to win the season. But again, it's not a competition.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
So you want to go with which question you want to ask first?
Do you want to read and
I'll do
answer?
it, yeah.
Or what do we want to do?
I'll read and you answer.
We're excellent on planning here, by the way, aren't we?
Do you want to start with this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So our friend American Numbers asked, regarding the Nakamura release, is the feeling that WWE gave him his release and then walked it back post facto, love the word usage, once they realized what it was for?
No, I believe they always knew what it was for.
They changed their minds.
Yeah, or they made life more difficult. But I do believe, they always knew. They knew that he, and I think he would have used that for leverage for things that he wants in WWE as well.
Yes.
He wants a world title run. It's how realistic that is. I think.
Hey, Punk has a fucking world title, like.
Yeah, but he's got the gingerbread world title, hasn't he?
I mean, that still counts for them as a title run.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's an important piece of this.
I don't think they were like, oh, it's for this, because they've absolutely known when they were first approached, it's like, it's for Tanahashi's retirement. They knew what it was for. No, I don't think that changed anything. So
97 AKA says, do you know or think whether Tanahashi is winning?
I don't know. I haven't asked. I'm going to be honest. I haven't asked anybody. I think what's interesting is some of the things that are going around this match in terms of the way they're building things.
Yes.
So they are playing on this AEW New Japan thing. They are playing on this tension, right? You've got Hiromu Takahashi saying, you need to Hiroshi Tanahashi, like, you need to win so we can defeat AEW, that sort of thing. No, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what they're doing. So they are playing right into this. Also, see, with Okada playing his character as well. I think you can go two ways with this. So I do think that these days, like, I think the Sting retirement showed, like, you don't need to put somebody over because you aren't really putting them over, and you don't really need to put over Okada at this point. Like, come on. No. But there's also that thing of, that kind of tradition in Japan as well of losing. And I think there's a way you can get out of it. So if you do want him to lose, then you need to involve Tsuji after the finish, in terms of like kind of just clearing the ring of Okada, and then you set something up. But if you can't set something up other than that, then I would absolutely go for Tanahashi to win. I think that's the era we're in now. Like, people want to celebrate these people on their way out now. But I know there's a cultural difference between us and Japan when we say that. But the way they're building it up, it almost feels like he should win. Whether he will or not, I don't know. But I think, you have to find a way to kind of close everything nice, not just the ceremony, because he's going to play the dickhead, right?
Yes.
He's going to play the dickhead. He's not playing this. It's not the respect match. It's not like the Naito Muto match with the respect or that sort of thing. He's playing the dickhead. So if he's going to play the dickhead and you're not going to get anything out of it in New Japan afterwards, then you've got to have some sort of angle. But I would prefer them to do that and have him win in this. That would be my preference. We'll see what they deliver. But I haven't asked about it now.
Well, this leads to our next question from Drower. What do you think about Okada talking about doing his AEW gimmick after doing the Blast from the Past entrance with Geto in Anjo, and if it's something Tanahashi's final match needs or wants?
This motherfucker worked me.
He did work you. He did work you.
This
I watched it happen.
This motherfucker.
It was beautiful.
I was so annoyed by that.
You were quite pissed.
I was like, we don't fucking need this. I
Nope.
don't want the dickhead gimmick. Just be the Rainmaker. Like, that's what people associate with you. That's what we've seen in Japan. I mean, I want to see, like, yeah, you want to see the Rainmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, fucking, like, pissed. And I mentioned it on here, I was just like, don't want it. And then, like, I'm talking to, like, someone first out about Okada, and they were like, oh, we went to Okada, and we, the whole group of them, and they said, have you thought about, what you're doing? Like, gimmick-wise, have you thought about your presentation? Have you thought about what you're going to do when you go back to the Dome? And he's like, I'm just going to do this character because, one, it differentiates from what we did previously, because they had the match in San Jose, they had the match in Osaka, when Okada left the company. So it's like, we've done the respect matches. We've done the tribute matches, essentially. So we don't really need to do them again. But he's just like, I can take this character and then it's going to create this heat. And like, so people aren't just going to be like, oh, I'm here to be like, yay, it's the end of Tanahashi's career. Like, very much like the Sting retirement. Like, people are going to want him to win. That atmosphere is going to be rampant. It's going to be rabid. So it's like, people wanted to suggest it to him, and actually he was like, oh, I've already come up with this is what I'm doing. So I think, again, it all depends on the finish on that one, but for me it's like, I think it works right now because they're playing into that, and there's definitely a feeling, amongst the kind of the fan base of wanting that superiority back for New Japan in some ways, because people feel like they're the minor partner, and that's never been a thing for New Japan. You can look at how they treat Noah or All Japan or anywhere else, and you can criticize that for absolutely sure, but it's like that thing of they want to be like seen as a superior thing. The Lion Mark is like, the king of sports, so there is a way of doing that, of having them kind of defeat AEW through Okada, that would create probably a much stronger atmosphere than what you get otherwise if you do the respect match. So I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea of playing into how incredible a babyface Tanahashi could be. I also think about the Evil match last year, and as much as like we can talk about Evil forever in terms of how much that House of Torture can just make you want to bash your head against the brick wall repeatedly, it's like the match he had with Tanahashi last year was one of the best matches on the Tokyo Dome show. I can't believe I just said that, but it was true. But because it's not just because they used the bells and whistles, it was because you really, really wanted Tanahashi to win. You were invested in the outcome. And I always say that's so important with all this stuff. So I'm not against it from that aspect. I am fucking worked by it. I am annoyed by it. And that's exactly what I wanted. So fair fucking play.
It's very cute.
But yeah, I was so pissed. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, you got me. Even after all this time, like, you fucking got me. But yeah, we'll see how that goes down in the Dome, because, he's played the heel character in New Japan somewhat before, or he was playing the not even a heel. He's just playing like, I hate the young guys, and I'm just going to beat on them. So they're used to them kind of mannerisms. But yeah, if you really got to ham it up in the press conferences and that before. So he did a little bit in that one, but when they go across to the main one on like January 3rd, they really need to kind of like hit that pretty hard and really get that across in the press. Obviously, build it into the intros for the national TV broadcast. Just make it like he's just a fucking asshole. And he's this invader, and we need to determine it, and we're going to support the babyface that took New Japan out the Dark Ages one last time to get rid of this guy, sort of thing, from our shores, sort of thing, and all that stuff. You got to play into that. Yeah. And it's like, I do think that it will probably work out better than the kind of respect match. If you wanted more of that, that's where the kind of the Kenny option or something would have been a thing if he was available to do it. But it's like, yeah. So yeah, I just work by it. I'm just still pissed on work by it. Sorry.
Well, what you said about the New Japan stuff leads us to our question from our beloved Tim Hunter.
Okay.
Do you think that New Japan still considers the AEW relationship as valuable to them as a business, or is it more just a loyalty thing that made them not want to disturb the relationship? Do you think that AEW has the main weight of the 3 contracts when it comes to Takeshita, and would TK have made him give up the IWGP before the Dome if Nakamura was to main event the show?
Okay, let's break this one down. So, Tony Khan has the majority to say when it comes to Takeshita. So he's triple contracted, but is his wrestler first, is my understanding of that one. When it comes to the IWGP, it's difficult. It's a nuclear option. I think I described this on poster. It's a nuclear option that potentially was there. You know, if things had broken down to that degree, then if they needed the IWGP to move, it could have moved at Gifu to Goto. And you've got history with Goto and Yota Tsuji, so especially around the New Japan Cup last year. So there's stuff you could have done there if you needed to, and that was a potential nuclear button option. But so that's one of them ones where it never became like a serious thing, but it could have been, because you don't know. Like, that's again, it's a game of, for New Japan, it's about working out what's your balance. So we always talk about loyalty factor in terms of Japanese business companies and how they operate, and how, like, that's such an important thing. So you do have that factor as a massive factor, and then you've got to, so they have to kind of balance it all up. But yeah, they potentially nuclear button, we'll just call it nuclear button on that one. So in terms of valuable versus loyalty, I think is kind of a question, and then it's a hard one. So when you think about it, you think, what is the value currently to New Japan of working with AEW? And previously, maybe you would have looked at, okay, so they had massive support for the strong shows, including talent. You know, a lot of talk about some of that being financial support. Well, strong's not got a thing anymore. That's gone. So we've now got a New Japan branded show, New Beginning, running in the spring, and that's it as far as we're aware. And, you know, they had Windy City Riot, was successful, and that's obviously used AEW wrestlers the last 2 years, who also can work New Japan wherever they wish, to an extent. So it's like, maybe New Japan moved to a more of a big show model under their own branding going forward in the US, and they run much less. I think that would probably be more successful for everybody. Then you look at, what else do they have offering? So you're looking at Forbidden Door. Is there like a revenue share? How does that work out? How important is that to New Japan's revenue? It's hard because people have not been able to see any difference in the quarters when it comes to this year, when it moved to last year. So they can't see an effect of that. Obviously, Dynasty was more of a negative effect. It probably outweighed anything they gained from Forbidden Door this year. Then you look at talent. So they do offer certain talent the ability to go and earn extra money in the US if they work AEW. And considering the issues that you've got with the yen and when you've got with inflation, then especially for foreign talent, that is a viable option. But you've also got to balance with that you could lose talent. You know, we could be sat here in 6 months and, you know, is Gabe Kidd going to be in AEW? Or half the War Dog's going to be in AEW? You know, if Yota Tsuji was ever to think about going somewhere else, would he be in AEW? Because, you know, Tony's taken a liking to him in the past. He also went to CML for holidays for Vendor, but, you know. So this is where you've got to balance it out. And then there's also that thinking of, you can keep your relationship with AEW, but do you need to do as much as you were doing previously? Could it be something where you share talent or use things or those sort of things, but it's not like you have this super strong relationship that you see on TV? Maybe that's the way that you see CML and AEW on TV now. You know, they've kind of picked up the role that New Japan filled probably a few years ago, where their talent are on TV every week. So I do think that it's a thing that where you've got to kind of work out. For me, it's different. So I think, are they going to become more isolationist? Are they going to become something where they try and kind of rebuild within their Japanese ecosystem and focus on their relationships with the Japanese companies, with Noah, with All Japan, potentially, if All Japan still want to work with them after the summer thing. But with other companies as well, Dragon Gate, they've had Dragon Gate wrestlers in and out this year as well. Are they more focused on that, and then also building up Bushiroad as a whole, because the growth in Bushiroad at the moment is in Stardom. So is that their focus? And then you keep your relationship with AEW. Maybe you do more. You're generally going to do more CML as well. And you go from there, because the loyalty factor is important. It's also good to kind of be in a kind of political alliance potentially, depending what WWE do. We don't know how their incurrences are going to go. We don't know how they're kind of, are they going to look to do something similar in Japan as what they did in Mexico? It's harder in Japan. We can also say that in Mexico they haven't gone as far as we maybe thought they would have. So it's a question of, there's lots of things for them to balance. Is that relationship as important to New Japan as it was 3-4 years ago? My interpretation would be it's probably not, but there's still enough value in it with it to maintain it, but maybe it just changes how it looks and feels, because there's huge value to AEW in having their wrestlers go to New Japan, or having the ability to go to New Japan in their contracts, because it's a huge way that they can do that without, where they can't do it in WWE. And that means a lot to some of these wrestlers. We've seen it with John Moxley over recent years as well. So there's still a value to that for them, and appearances like that from like Moxley or Mega or Mercedes Moné at times, they've all helped with like world subscriptions, and that's a income that they can have an impact on more than their traditional ones of live attendance in Japan.
Well, here's my question for you, right? I think one of the things we've talked about, and I think it's pretty clear to anybody who follows New Japan closely, or like me follows them a little bit more at a distance, is that New Japan has not been the most organized or well-run promotion in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is the AEW relationship a victim of that lack of organization, right? Is the fact that they're in such a weird position with AEW part of the fact that the people driving the bus are kind of driving it all over the road?
I don't know. I think it's more about the long-term mistakes in terms of being able to produce people through. And then it's also about the difference in just terms of money spend and that sort of thing. Like, the roster, so many of their roster is departed from America. And it would depart from America whether it was an AEW or not.
Correct.
But there's still there isn't a resentment there from that. But then, it's just an imbalance. So you've gone from something that was very balanced to something that's very imbalanced now. Yeah. And that makes life more difficult. And that's where I think one of the interesting stories is to see how the relationship with CMLL develops, because CMLL have a stronger kind of basis in terms of, they own all their own buildings. They're such a build into the tourist part of it. But also, you're starting to see dual contracts come in there. Will that affect anything? But they obviously don't have to contend with, like, the way things move. So, like, in CMLL, you're not getting the kind of the... you don't need to have an IWGP champion there every week or everything like that, and things don't need to move in that same way, and there's not as much story progression in that way. So it's different, right? It's a different business. So it's actually probably better suited to be in a partnership with someone like AEW than New Japan was. Not just because of the distance. But I think that's something to keep an eye on, especially with dual contracts. I'm very dubious about dual contracts at the moment and how well they're going to work going forward. I was thinking about Kota Ibushi when I was writing this around, and we talk about Takeshita. So it's like, how well does that work? We'll kind of see. But yeah, I just think that they're different relationships, and it's as the relationship changes, it becomes harder. And that's what I think. Yeah, it just becomes harder.
Is there anything else you want to cover about the article before we move on to our final topic, Trish? Obviously, we can come back and discuss this again on another episode.
No, I just need to answer Josh's question, because I haven't done that.
Oh, sorry. Did I skip one? Oh, I'm so sorry, Josh. Young Boy Josh says, your article had a wide range of varied sources, and one would assume some level of variance to what people were saying about the situation. With your article getting so much attention and discussion, were you nervous about rebuttal or disputes from either company or any journalist? Were you nervous about putting the story out there?
All right. Okay. So thank you first to Josh for working with us as well through this, and because it's really, really helpful to have as many people working with us as you can. But here's the thing. So was I nervous about putting it out there? No, because I tended to focus on things where we had multiple sources from multiple companies at times. And I thought that would make things more kind of... there's things we left out. There's things that we kind of glossed over. They were like, more dubious. Or we've said, there's times where I've said we aren't able to get, independent confirmation of this. And those sort of things is important. It's important to be honest about, what's been sourced, but also, are we able to confirm this or not? And did I expect proposal to? Yeah, I expected more disputes, actually. I expected it to kind of get the kind of the way Keller treatment and have the line just off and then kind of get that back. The fact that nothing has from anybody is surprised me slightly. But also, there are people in AEW well aware of kind of that we are able to source information regularly from New Japan. There are people in AEW I have discussed stories with from New Japan this year, and vice versa. So it's like, they're aware that we're not just kind of throwing things together, that we've gone independently and sourced different things as well. So I think that helps in that aspect. And I was more, to be honest, I was actually expecting WWE to try and throw back the Nakamura thing, but I can see why they wouldn't, because you don't want to look like you've been bested by Tony Khan effectively in their little war. So I can kind of see that. So yeah, I do think that is a key bit about that. I didn't expect it to get so much attention and discussion. No. I didn't. But I wanted it out there, and I wanted it to illustrate that, people like Josh at Keeping It Strong Style, or Josh at We Work Stiff, or even Joel at Super J-Cast, who I know, like, people go on his Twitter, troll the gimmick and kind of go after him. But the thing is that these guys had the story. They had the story. And yeah, it was from their perspective, from New Japan perspective, but they had the story. And, I think it's something to pay attention to, that it's not just one or two people in wrestling media that are able to kind of source things or put things together or, be able to put things out there. And you kind of shouldn't dismiss everything. Actually, it's worth kind of investigating things a bit more and kind of finding out what it actually is, the story underneath everything, rather than just trying to find ways to kind of put people down or to just ignore it, I guess. But yeah, no, I wasn't nervous about it, because at the end of the day, look, I don't care about upsetting anybody. I think that I just want to get the best story that we can out there, the most complete story that we can out there, and that's always my thing. Like, I've never been, we'll upset people all the time. God,
Oh yeah,
we do it all the time. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I try to be fair, and as long as it's fair and it has enough context, I think it's really hard to dispute. So, cool. Right. I've talked about things I've written long enough now. Can I just say, I want to correct one thing from the article, and that's at the very end. It said the Never Trios titles will be defending the Rambo. It's now looking like a 4-way. That match has changed like 6 times in the last 2 months, and I'm fucking bored of it changing. But there we are. And Naito's going to Noah, which is hilarious, because that's where we originally thought he might go. And what's even greater is the little image is like, you can see the cap and the weird hair, and they've tried to pretend to hide it, but it's not hiding it. But this might be the era, right, where Naito talks to Tokyo Sports and he's actually honest, because he was like, I'm not going out to New Japan, I'm going elsewhere. And it was like, and we're like, okay, yeah, you're still working, we still don't trust you. And he's like, no, he's going to Noah. So this is the era of honest Naito in media. Is this year the era where he says, like, I'm fed up with New Japan for this and this, and he's being honest? Is this the year where he's like, I'm going elsewhere, and he's honest? Like, don't like it. I don't like it. Start lying to me again, Naito. Like, start lying. I don't like it. Anyway, yeah, Naito and Noah, 1st of January. Isn't that a weird thing to say? I'm sure there's an Ozawa match coming, which will be their big money spinner, I'm sure. But and I will be into it, because I like Ozawa, and Naito's my special little guy, and I will be into it. But yeah, weird thing to see this Sunday morning.
All right, so coming off of this with some good stuff, you and Jesse Collins had a really interesting discussion about wrestling media, and it was probably, of all the things you talked about with all the people and all the different shows, the one time I was jealous, because I was like, I'd really like to be involved in this conversation. I have a lot of thoughts about this. So Sachin on our Discord said, I really liked your and Jesse's discussion on Meltzer and Figure 4 wrestling, and I would love to hear a segment with you and Sarah discussing it, which was like direct way to my heart, Session. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I was like, Trish, let's do it. And she was like, yes. So I thought this was a larger conversation about wrestling media and the state of wrestling media in 2025 and some of the ways that they've covered big stories and not covered big stories as it came out of Trish writing this really amazing long form article that I think for some people came out of nowhere, although it shouldn't have, but whatever. And I think it kind of led to a larger discussion point between the two of you that I really was interested in wrestling media as a whole and how the decline of the Figure 4 F4W website and to some degree the Observer has affected the rest of the wrestling media ecosystem, which I thought was kind of a very interesting conversation. I thought Jesse, as a journalist, was a really good person to start that conversation. I suspect you and I will muddle through it less adroitly than he did.
True.
And I should probably preface this by saying, like, I don't want to just discuss F4W online. And I also want to be clear that, like, you know, one of the things is Brian Alvarez of F4W and Garrett Gonzalez have been very kind to both of us. You know, Brian was a guest on our show and allowed us to interview him, was extremely generous with his time and his thoughts. Garrett is extremely open about how much he enjoys the podcast. He takes every opportunity he can to promote it, which I know is appreciated by both of us. You know, so it's always weird and awkward to discuss this. And I think one of the things that happens is there's a lack of wrestling media criticism because so many people, it is a small community and people don't want to upset other people. I mean, I don't like when people criticize us. It fucking sucks. But I do think
you are so much more affected by that than I am.
Well, you know, I have my good days and I have my bad days. I don't mind when people criticize me for things that I actually do. That's where I'm like, oh, I need to do a better job. What makes me crazy when people criticize me for things that I'm just like, I didn't say that, bro. Like when people are like, she hates Will Ospreay. I'm like, bro, like, what do I have to fucking do? Like blow the guy? Like seriously.
We'll get you a flag. We'll get you a Will Ospreay flag.
I'll give you a little flag. I'm not going to buy a shirt, but seriously.
I'll get you a flag.
I can't believe I said that. Anyway. I just think that one of the things that I could talk about wrestling media and a lot of it, especially because with wrestling media, it covers things that in some ways shouldn't be wrestling media, right? We have content creators, we have influencers, we have ex-wrestlers, we have carny grifters like Bischoff and like the hardcore asshole types. And then you have serious legitimate journalists who are trying to do a good job. And then you have the aggregators, right? And I think one of the things that I've struggled with this year has been how much the F4W site has deteriorated into just aggregation, and how the website itself is so much less usable from both a user interface standpoint, because there's so many ads on it. And I know you talked about how you can't access it on mobile at all.
All on Chrome or on Firefox. Yeah,
right.
Not at all. Yeah.
You know, it's like literally if you go to the website, you can't get there. And then when you're there, the site itself is so bogged down with multiple versions of the same story that are just sort of aggregated that it's effectively not useful to me as someone who's like, oh, I missed this pay-per-view or I didn't see this. You know, is there a story about this? You know, trying to put some information together for the podcast about TNA was extremely challenging because I was like, you know, I want to find this and I want to find it from someplace reputable. And 9 times out of 10 at this point, I'm going to Post, right? Yep. Like, and that's kind of a sad state of affairs. I think it's kind of a depressing situation. And I think the other piece that I find frustrating is one of the things as someone who listens to Wrestling Observer Radio so much and like really internalizes what's said is how often there seems to be a lack of information or a lack of deeper information on stories that I know are going on, right? And I think you know, some of this New Japan stuff that you've talked about is a really good example of that. Like, I think we both know that Dave knows more about some of these topics than he's sharing on the show. And, you know, for whatever reason, which is certainly his prerogative, but I think when you're charging the most for a subscription of any website out there, it's kind of, your readers are sort of allowed to sort of say, well, then what am I doing? Right. I think Dave, a lot of the times now it says, well, as we all know, right. We hear that a lot. And it's like, well, we didn't know that. You didn't tell us.
Yeah. I think it's difficult in terms of surviving in this landscape. So I start with that. So it's not just then that I see this with, I always think of my local newspaper, which is a pretty big newspaper, Manchester Evening News. Their website is full of articles with clickbait headlines that are often AI generated, that aim at like Facebook and stuff, because that's how they generate the more revenue now that people don't go out and buy the paper. Like, I don't remember the last time I bought that paper. So I think there's an element to that. However, I do think that there has to be, in a way, and it's hard because we don't have that many journalists in wrestling, and we don't have that many sites that are able to operate, you know, under their own kind of premise where they're not reliant on their stuff, because you need places that are going to give accurate information, that are going to provide not just aggregation but context on these things. Because you can post all the aggregation you want. I mean, you can post about this post or that post, but if you don't provide context and you don't provide kind of analysis of it, then it's just aggregation. It's not actual journalistic writing. You know, it's not news. It's not anything. It's just aggregation. And we can all do that. You know, then they don't need to come to you, do that. They can just go to the person on Twitter who's going to interpret it however they fucking well want and post it however they want. And then all of a sudden so you're ending up with everything is coming at you through a lens. You know, it's coming through it's being changed to whatever voice it suits. And that's what's dangerous, you know. That's how you get so much of the stuff that we have in the world. So you need places you go that people can trust, and that will provide people with the analysis and with the context that allows them to then judge a story however they wish to judge it, rather than being guided by aggregation to do so. And it worries me. And then when I see like promoters, and you know, we've seen this with Nick Khan, with Paul Levesque, even with Tony Khan recently, shouting out like, oh, everything's fake news, or don't trust the dirt sheets and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's like, so you're stuck in this age-old mentality. But actually, you know, there's even more importance on independent journalism than there's ever been. And that doesn't mean it's completely independent, because everyone's sourcing, right? And this whole way in wrestling is where no one can talk and say who they are, and no one wants to say who's on the record and all these sort of things, and maybe they're 20 years behind everybody else in that aspect. And, you know, that's not unusual. Like, politics is full of, like, sourcing exactly the same way, right? But it's like, these people have to be independent in some way. And we're coming away from that. And we're coming away to everyone having an actual voice. And it's becoming more regimented. And it becomes more about how can we sustain our own operation, because we're not able to do that for our own journalism, and we're not able to do that through people trusting what we say, and less about, you know, trusting your own work and the value of it. And someone was speaking to me this week, and they gave me kind of a really important bit of advice, and it was kind of like, don't get into arguments about this. It was talking about this article, but talking about other things as well. It's like, don't get into arguments about things that you can put together as a story and you can write or you can share, you know, because at the end of the day, your work can stand for itself.
Yes.
Right? Your work can stand for itself. You don't need to do that. If you write everything enough and you provide enough context, and then you let the reader make their own decision, and then they can debate it with whoever they want to debate it to. And that's the healthy chain, right? But at the moment, it's like you either end up in stupid arguments about trying to defend it, or you see that with a lot of, and I need to get out of it as well. Like, we all start having stupid arguments about it. It's like, no, because we're not providing the context. We're doing everything in 120 fucking words, or we're aggregating it in 120 fucking words, but it doesn't actually display anything. So you're not getting enough information to you to make an informed decision or inform yourself on how or why something is or why something's happening. So I don't know how you change it. Now, the world has moved so much towards aggregation, and you can see the wrestling media space moving so much towards that. And then, you know, even with the clips and everything else and that sort of thing, that you just miss so much context. And it means that everything becomes more narrow, everything becomes more shallow, everything becomes like, I need to know exactly, like, oh, this is the story. And it's like, it's maddening. And I find it frustrating. And it's hard because there are so many people that are coming through who are trying to do this, right? There are people that write really, really well. I think the emergence of Post in recent years has been excellent, and WrestleNomics has been excellent for wrestling.
Yes,
in so
very
many
much
ways.
so.
You know, I look at someone like Brian Zellman, the Torch, who wrote an excellent article via Post the other week, and think, okay, yeah, you're someone that can, you know, you are writing things that will help to develop, you know, stories in wrestling rather than just repeating the same old fucking thing 100 fucking times. But it's like, we're also undiversifying. So we have this thing where we're only talking about one company or two company and that sort of thing. And this used to be a way, we used to use these kind of the news and the Observer and things like that as a gateway to finding new things, to finding new patterns,
that's gone.
to investigating new things. Like, we're not doing that so much now. Again, it's that same thing as we talked about in media, where we talked about the kind of things going back into one or two mediums, like Netflix kind of eating everything up, or Paramount, Skydance doing the same, or whoever. we're kind of seeing the same thing with news, where everything's kind of going back into like one median or two, and we're seeing less independent thought. And I
think this is.
I hate it, man.
I have a tremendous empathy for people who do multiple shows a week. We do the show every 2 weeks, and I would rather take the time and do deep dives into stuff as we try to do, rather than like become a recap podcast, right? Like I don't know that I see the benefit in someone telling me what happened on a show that I watched, right? But I also appreciate that other people enjoy that and that there's an audience for it. I guess I just feel like if you're in this and you're not sharing what you know, or you're not telling me what you know, like, what am I paying for, right? So you have to either provide me with entertainment, right, which is important, and I can be entertained by things, right? Like I'm not expecting Tunnel Talk to give me backstage information about what's going on in
No. They're reporters now. Do you hear today's Tunnel Talk? They're reporters now. They're a news source. They're a news source.
The ham is very important.
Yep.
But I'm not expecting that from them. But I listen to them every week because I find them entertaining, because they entertain me. And that's the thing where it's like, if you're not entertaining me and you're not providing me with any news, and I'm not getting any insights into anything that's happening, why am I listening? Why am I devoting my time and energy? And I think that's one of the things that I find, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, you're not disappointed in people from whom you have no expectations, right? I'm not disappointed listening to Wrestling Observer Radio because I think Dave sucks and Brian's an asshole. I think these are both really intelligent guys.
Someone's going to aggregate that now.
Please. I think both of these are incredibly intelligent men who have an incredible breadth of knowledge about the wrestling industry. And I'm disappointed that they don't share that as much anymore. And that context, which was something that Dave was so good at, seems to be gone now. And I'm bummed. And I feel like that's one of those things where I don't know if it's Vince McMahon leaving. I don't know if it's the fallout from, all the shit those guys had to eat during the CM Punk stuff and how horrible. It has a lot to do with things. It has a lot to do with it, how awful everybody was to them. And I agreed fully. This was something that Jesse talked about that I thought was really important. Jesse talked about the importance of people defending Dave when he's criticized for things that are so outrageous and over the top. And he's talking about criticisms from like fucking Bischoff or somebody else, or the criticism from Andrade, right? Where Andrade posted a video of Dave saying the equivalent of "the sky is blue." Andrade says the sky is blue. And Andrade's like, he's a liar. I never said the sky was blue. In the tweet, he literally says, like, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I feel like it is important for people to defend that on. Because you can't, like, if you're not willing to say, like, this person is telling the truth, then we're all just fucking Fox News repeating Republican talking points. I guess I just don't, like, that's the part I agree with Jesse completely. But I also think that there should be a space to criticize when people are not doing a good job.
I think that's where it's difficult, though, because we see this all the time when you criticize anything in wrestling. It's everything's about, like, you either see it as, like, completely black or white, and actually you are looking at 14 Shades of Grey, And
you are!
So, at all times. So,
always! Unless it's WWE.
you got so many of them lines today. I was like, yeah, fuck it.
Or Edge. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
But there's an element to that. So I do think that Brawl Out had a huge effect on it, because they were targeted so heavily for so long, and there wasn't enough.
Yeah, Sean Ross Sapp still owes them an apology for that, by the way.
Yeah,
the way
his business is part in being the anti-observer, is it not? It's in part of, we're different, they're the people you can trust. That's what he builds his business on. He uses that phrase all the time.
And I get sitting on the stage while fucking Dax Shepard, Jesus Christ, I've been watching too many TikToks. Dax Harwood goes after fucking Dave and Brian for accurate reporting is a bridge too far.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry.
I think people need to work together more. I do.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I was thinking about this week with some of the conversations that I've been lucky to have this week, and the people that we work with and we have regular interaction with, is that I get a lot more out of things, and we get a lot more out of things, and we can provide a lot more because we work with so many people. Whether it's been, this week working with some of the folk who cover New Japan, or whether it's been people from the Observer, or from Post, or, or even from Torch, or from, including my special little guy. Very, very me. I was so happy.
You were so happy.
I was so happy. But it's so stupid. But no, I do think that we all need to work together more. And maybe that goes against the concept because, again, it's different for us. We're not chasing money, right? But there are so many
very
people
lucky
who
in that
are,
way.
and I get it because if you want it to become your income, then it's different, right? And it's hard. but also like there has to be better ways to generate an income, and there has to be a trust in what you can produce in order to do so. But I do think people need to work together more. I really do, and I think we need to defend the fact that, like, you know, you saw it with Lucas in France a few years ago. That was a horrendous example. And, you know, a very young journalist trying to, you know, make his way. We need to support pathway. There needs to be pathways. There needs to be pathways for people to come through. You know, it shouldn't be 2025 before Sports Illustrated get their first kind of women's writer in Lyric. You know, and she's fantastic.
Agreed.
But it's like it shouldn't take that long. So there needs to be an emphasis on that. And I don't know where that comes from. And maybe that's why we're pushing for it. Maybe that's why we're discussing it. You know, hopefully you open up discussion because you're trying to push for it, because we need more of this, not less. We need less of the kind of the aggregation, the clickbait shit, and more of people having the opportunity to write about what they enjoy, what they're passionate about,
and different viewpoints.
Yeah,
you know, diversity not just in like the type of writers, but in the type of fans that are talking about wrestling and that are engaging with it. Right? Like it has to move away from this like, you know, slow down and grab a hold type bullshit, or like this is the only acceptable. These are the only acceptable good matches, and you know, that kind of stuff is exhausting too. Like. I don't know. I think it's a larger conversation. I wish that there was enough in wrestling media to allow for like a regular wrestling media criticism. I see why there isn't, because it's such a small and incestuous industry. But I feel like, you know, switching it up a little bit is never a bad thing.
Diversifying content's really important now.
Things get stale so quickly.
Yeah, and especially now because people's attention spans are so much less. You know, you watch a clip on TikTok, you watch another clip on TikTok, you watch another clip on TikTok. You know what I mean? Like, you need things that are going to engage you. And that means that you may have to change things up. It means you may have to cover different things. It may have to have different voices. You may have to have, you know, new ways of doing, new ways of presenting things. You've got to try this out. It's actually more of an inventive time. Whereas everything's becoming closed and we're kind of becoming more like, oh, we just do this, we just do that. Actually, no, this is the time to now try and push things forward.
Do something completely different, right?
Yeah,
shake it up a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that goes across the board. And I think we think about this all the time. You know, my problem is I think about 100 ideas and I probably only get to deliver 2 of them. But it's like...
Well, we also have jobs.
Yeah. Trains hate me, so yeah, we'll class them, especially last few weeks. But yeah, no, but that's the thing. It's like, even we think about it, it's like we need to... And it needs to be a conscious effort from everybody, you know. Like, this is kind of like a joy, like, come on, guys, like, let's go for this. But I do think that's really important, and I think that's something that we need to think about going forward. Because my worry is that if you lose places that people trust, then what are you left with? And I think that's what we're seeing a lot with politics.
Very much so.
And the anything you can do to kind of fight that in wrestling, I'm all for. And you know, like who my journalists I look up to in terms of like how I think about the same thing, and I'm like, that's the emphasis that I just steal from them. It's their kind of MO that I'm like, yep, but this is what, if I can make any tiny bit of difference, and this is what we're gonna do. Okay. Are we right? Just to follow up, and just because I want to cause some more trouble. Before I do one bit of follow up from last week's the last episode, what have you thought of the C2 this year?
C2's been good. I'm enjoying the C2.
Yep.
You know, it's probably what's carrying me through the television right now.
Yeah, agreed. You know that.
There's not much else there that I'm particularly interested in.
I said to Rich, if I had to redo this weekly like you did, I would have smashed my fucking
I don't know how
laptop
people
right
do
now.
it. I don't know how people do it. I'm critiquing people who criticize who do it weekly, and I'm like, I don't know fucking how they do it. I really don't. Like, I just, it's very hard to do week to week. It's very hard to visualize the big picture. It's very hard not to get caught up on the stuff you know about what's coming or what you hear is in the pipeline, and just not be despairing about what's going on. But
I'm shit at that. But in one bit of follow-up, we talked a lot about Paige's title reign last week. I'm going to follow up just with a couple of news reporting. I'm not going to talk about this until after World's End, like in terms of what they're doing or the multi-man or anything, or how... But I will tell you 5 or 6 things, and I just want to leave it there because I don't want to do it. I'm not going to get mad. It's frustrating me. But I just want to say that a lot of the things we talked about actually were talked about afterwards by other people, funny enough. So Wade Keller actually reported the lines that Tony wanted to move to other stories that he felt he couldn't tell with Paige because he had no heel challengers, which is something we talked about quite a lot during that thing that we did last week. So he actually reported that in the point between our recording and our publication last week. So I think he was the first journalist to put that out. Obviously he didn't get aggregated because he's Wade Keller.
Nobody ever advocates that.
He does, but he like it's so funny. He gets so much stuff on there, and no one aggregates it. So it's kind of
listen.
Good. But
I understand where Tony's coming from. The scintillating story of Nepo Baby Hook is really, I'm glued to the fucking television.
I said I wouldn't talk about it. However, yeah. So, and Wade notes, that as we said, he said he had no challenges. It opens up more stories to them, but he notes at the end of his thing, what happens with Paige in terms of keeping fan investment will rely on the follow-up. If you thought that the story was strange in terms of it went from what seemed like a very simple story, where Paige lays out, if you turn on me, then I'll get my revenge, and then you have Stuart Strickland come back. That felt like the layout from the start of the story. I can tell you that they were told after Wrestle Dream that they were changing up to this. So this was not something that was discussed at the start, like All Out or something like that. He didn't know then when they started this story, because, if you think about it this way, right? He gets geeked out at Wrestle Dream in terms of the finish, in terms of like the turn, right? Then you get geeked out again at Full Gear in terms of that. And doing that with a smart baby face tends to be not something you want to do. And then and then I will say, I wrote in the newsletter, fuck it. There are concerns about what they're doing at World's End, in terms, especially for him, because he's going to be competing against 2 returns. He's going to be competing against 2 returns, and he's probably not going to come out the best side of that. So
on this day, I see clearly.
I didn't mean that one.
Getting the opening pop. Sorry.
That wasn't the one I meant, but yeah.
No, I
know. That's another thing. We're not discussing that afterwards then, either. But no, so there are concerns, and there was concern the company, and I have spoken to a number of people there who, and I said, what do you think of this run? And they say, I don't know if he'll ever really get given the ball. So that's the feeling I got. And it's really funny. I always say that because it's funny how the feeling you get from inside compared to what you get from the fans sometimes, and the people that kind of hate when you bring anything up. But that was the kind of feedback that we got. Lots of concern over where this story's going, how it benefits anybody, and mostly for Paige is probably the most likely to lose out. But his follow-up is pretty key. Because he's in 2017 Dean Ambrose territory now.
Listen, as I said to somebody else, I'm not heavily invested. I'm interested in Swerve and Hangman being murder husbands, if that's what they want to do for a little while. That'll entertain me. I'll be entertained. But I think we can look at the TV and see where the weaknesses are. I just had to watch this week and see where the weaknesses are. It's really obvious.
The thing is that you're bringing Swerve back in that time period. You're doing this stuff with Paige, trying to do like a revenge run, and then you're going to bring somebody else back in the next couple of weeks. Right. And it's all going to be overshadowed by the C2. So the timing of it is very, very strange. But that's where it is. So that's the story. That's what's been reported. But there's some of the notes that I talked to people about afterwards. We'll talk about it more after World's End. And it won't come first, because it's going to be Wrestle Kingdom time.
We won't be discussing this till fucking February at this point, which is more than fine by me, because then they have time to get their shit together.
So the next show.
Our next
episode will be with the wonderful Tunnel Talk. Hooray!
Listen, you're not doing this correctly.
No. Go on.
It's the 2nd annual Trish and Sarah and Tunnel Talk holiday crossover extravaganza.
Trust an American to be able to do the full of like Christmas fucking holiday promotion scare.
Love that shit. Leaning in. That will be airing in our regular slot, which will be on December 23rd. That episode will be released at our regular time.
Yeah, Tunnel Talk already spoiled that we're going to pre-record. So
we don't need to spoil it. We're going to be live in the studio at 10 a.m. on the 23rd of December. Absolutely.
We absolutely are not. But yes. No, it's... Go on, sorry.
No, the holidays in our podcasting schedule means that we will actually not be taking any time off this week. You will have an episode from us every 2 weeks, just because of the way things lay out. The episode after the episode on the 23rd will come out on the 6th, and it will feature Trish live from Japan, and I am very excited about that.
Yeah, and hopefully no sounding like I'm underwater this year. But
technical difficulties.
We will be, we'll be out there and talk about everything that we see, witness. That's going to be just an incredible experience, I think, this year.
I'm very excited for you and a little bit jealous.
But yeah, Tunnel Talk holiday special in 2 weeks.
Extravaganza.
All right. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. It's not happening.
Come on. Extravaganza.
See, this is what's going to happen in 2 weeks anyway, isn't it? Like, they just get me to do shit. And then I'm like, And I shake my head and go, why the fuck did I agree to this? Like, why did I suggest this? Like, this is what we do every time. Anyway, all right, okay, extravaganza. Yay! I feel like a fucking Muppet. Right. Yeah, and we'll find out if Leah still knows anything about Blackpool nominations this year. You know, that's we gotta follow up on that. To be honest though, like Blackpool lights are not very good this year. I was up there like the other week. No. I think they need some new lights. To be honest, we have to find out if anyone can get them some. Someone get Blackpool some new lights. They need new lights. But yeah, we'll find out if Leah knows.
How much light will the new lights give off though?
Not very much. Like they're not as good now. I don't know if it's like energy saving shit. Like I don't know. It's not as bright. Like when I used to go as a kid, it was like whoa, like it's like incredible. It looked like Las Vegas, and now it's just like okay, yeah, it's fine, I guess. You know, and they have other stuff, and they have a nice little Christmas market. But yeah. Anyway, we'll see. Hey, yeah, Christmas special, 2 weeks, extravaganza, whatever. I don't know. There you go. That's my Grinch Christmas promotion. We're also going to be on with Poison Runner.
Yes, we are.
For their Christmas special on the 17th of December. We'll post some more details of that as we get them.
Love those guys. Excited to do that show again.
Yeah, because last year it was just me, so I was like on my own and in my little hat. So this year I'm going to have my Grinch hat and you're joining me too, so that's even better. And I think they're going to attempt to get us mad about the Hangman title reign, so that could be very, very funny.
We will, as always, post all of our social media so you know where we are going to be and when.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll discuss. We'll post all of them, so you won't be without our content for the next 4 weeks. So, although at this point you're probably sick of my voice after this week.
I know I am.
Fuck
I'm sorry. Valid. Earned, deserved.
We started so nice today to each other as well. You were so nice to me, and I was like, right, I can't fucking have this. And now you're like, no, and I'm just like, fuck you. Right. Anyway. So this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. We are produced by the wonderful Leah of Tunnel Talk. Hooray! Look, I did it right. You can listen to Tunnel Talk every Sunday for your updates on all AW storylines, characters, just not during the holidays.
Some time off. Because they're taking a nice long extended break.
What is the point of me doing this?
Sorry. Go ahead.
I did it right and you fucked it. No, that's it now. I'm not doing it anymore. No. Yes. They're having a break because, they want to match our schedule, which, because apparently, we're off every week, so we have it cushy. I heard you.
Yeah, we're not afraid of the grind, baby.
That's always coming. That's coming back next week too. You can guarantee that one. Anyway, we are produced by Leah of Tunnel Talk. Please listen to Tunnel Talk every week that they're actually on the air. Leah's looking at me like, this is funny, but I'm also going to kill you. Listen to Tunnel Talk. No, to be honest, having that sort of viewpoint, something completely different from the way we think, and that it actually really helps me to think about things differently as well, and I love that. So please get in with them. Have a listen to everything else on our network. You can find all those podcasts on Red Circle, socialsuplex.com, and on wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also find us on Social Suplex Discord. Come and speak to us about everything you want. Play Scrandal, watch Formula One. I don't know. We've had some fun in there last few weeks. So all the other hosts are in there too. So if you want to come and join our community, find us at socialsuplex.com and click on the Discord link. You can also contact us at Trish and Sarah on X, under our own names on Blue Sky. I had to think what I was calling that there. There we go. Or you can find us by email at contact us by email at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks for a holiday extravaganza. That's it. I've said it 3 times now. You can't kill me. And there we are. So until then, I have been Trish.
And I have been Sarah.
And this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm done. It's over. That's it. Bye-bye.
Good night, Irene.